lines for your reactions. How should we respond, and how are you responding?
I'm Marjorie Egan. Meanwhile, as Trump freezes billions for Harvard, local beneficiaries are sounding their own alarms, including researchers with Mass General Brigham. We'll talk with Harvard's trickle-down impact on local healthcare institutions with Michael Curry, CEO of the Mass League of Community Health Centers and a board member of the NAACP. All that ahead in the first hour of Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. The Justice Department is suing the state of Maine. That's over Maine's refusal to ban transgender athletes from participating in women's and girls' sports. President Trump has signed an executive order barring trans athletes from doing so. Maine Governor Janet Mills has refused to comply. She says she has a duty to follow state law. But U.S. Education Secretary Linda McMahon says Maine is breaking federal rules.
Maine continues to willfully violate Title IX and to strip the civil rights of female athletes in the state.
The Trump administration has tried to force Maine to comply by halting federal funding for children's meals. But last week, a federal judge ordered the Trump administration to restore money for children's school lunch programs in Maine. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is heading to Paris today for talks with European officials. These are on how to end Russia's war in Ukraine. The trip was arranged after a deadly Russian strike on a Ukrainian city on Palm Sunday, as NPR's Michelle Kellerman reports.
Secretary Rubio described the Russian missile attack on Sumy as horrifying and said it was another reminder of why the administration is putting time and effort into trying to end the war. The State Department says he will be traveling to Paris to meet his European counterparts. The statement did not give further details. He'll be joined by Steve Witkoff. He's President Trump's Middle East envoy, who has taken on several big diplomatic tasks, including direct dealings with Iran and with Russia. Witkoff met with Russian President Vladimir Putin just days before the Palm Sunday attack. Michelle Kellerman, NPR News, the State Department.
The Commerce Department says consumer spending saw the biggest jump in more than 2 years during March. NPR's Alina Selyuk reports that's as more people rushed to buy cars ahead of President Trump's new tariffs.
Retail sales grew 1.4% in March compared to February. It's the biggest jump since early 2023, and the driver is cars. Spending on automobiles and auto parts rose more than 5% over last month. Lots of shoppers have rushed to buy cars, worried about prices going up as a result of new tariffs starting to apply to imported vehicles and parts. Compared to a year ago, spending overall at stores, car dealerships, and restaurants increased 4.6%. That's a notable jump. It comes as people increasingly report feeling down about the economy in the Consumer Sentiment Survey, anxious about the impact of tariffs on prices. But March data still has people spending on clothes, gardening supplies, and going out to eat. Alina Selyuk, NPR News.
President Trump has ordered a national security review of imports of critical minerals. These are widely used in defense and technology. Trump will decide whether to put tariffs on them. China leads the world in its production of rare earth minerals, and Beijing has slapped export restrictions on these minerals. You're listening to NPR.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Trump administration efforts to gut federal agencies are being felt locally. The Enterprise reports that the Falmouth Public Library has lost a $7,500 federal grant for improving its archives. The library system has been informed that the grant through the Institute of Museum and Library Services was terminated. Last month, President Trump issued an executive order putting the staff of the Institute of Museum and Library Services on leave. The Institute delivers grants through state library systems. The grant funding was planned to hire a preservation professional who would take care of that library's archives. And the Trump administration has also cut funding to citizenship programs right here in Massachusetts. Mass Live reporting that $300,000 was cut from the Massachusetts Immigrant and Refugee Advocacy Coalition. It was money used to help people in the country become citizens. Officials with the group had hoped the funds would be reinstated and would run through September 30th as was expected, but that is not happening. And now the organization has to cease citizenship application assistance. In sports, the Red Sox and the Rays wrap up their series in Tampa Bay tonight. They each have won one game. This will be the rubber game of the match. It's a 7:05 start. Game 1 of the NBA playoffs for the Celtics is Sunday afternoon at the Garden. First up, the Orlando Magic. Sunny, windy, 50 degrees today, clear sky 40 overnight, sunny near 60 tomorrow. We could see upper 70s by Saturday. We'll take it. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Lilly Endowment, a private foundation supporting NPR's coverage of religion and spirituality, and Jarl and Pamela Mohn, focusing on civil liberties, foster youth, public radio, and the arts.
Welcome to Boston Public Radio, third day of our new music. I think we're getting used to it a little bit, Jim.
It's one of us.
Jim Brady and Marjorie Egan are here. We're broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, and we are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're going to be back here on Friday with live music, thank you, and more. We won't be here on Tuesday because on Monday, of course, the marathon goes right by here, and Tuesday they're cleaning up after the marathon, so we're not going to be able to be here. But we'll be live from Brighton. Hello again, Jim.
Hey there, Marjorie. So we start the show this morning with yet another brazen detention by immigration officials, originally reported by the nonprofit newsroom, the New Bedford Light. Video, which I hope you've seen, and if you hadn't, you must, shows federal agents in bulletproof vests, at least one of them smiling, smashing the glass window of Juan Francisco Mendez's car in order to arrest him. His wife recorded the footage and could be heard repeatedly trying to communicate to the officials that their lawyer is on the way and pleading for them to wait. They did not wait, and by the way, it appears they got the wrong guy. As in the kidnapping of Rumeysa Ozturk, the Tufts graduate student grabbed off the streets of Somerville, the agents in New Bedford don't identify themselves. One of them is seen wearing a vest labeled FBI, not CPB. ICE says they're conducting, quote, enhanced enforcement throughout Massachusetts. Many immigration advocates and lawmakers say the Trump administration is targeting the state for its policies friendly to relocating migrants and asylum seekers. So the lines are open at 877-301-8970. State-sponsored violence ramps up against immigrants in our state and region. What's been your reaction? How should we be responding when the fear permeates communities of people who might not look like what the Trump administration deems an American should look like? And seeing the footage of the ICE agent, or whoever he was, smashing the car window in New Bedford with some kind of axe and this joyful glee slathered on his face, did you not think, as I know Marjorie and I did, this is not America? 877-301-8970, or it is what America has become. 877-301-8970. I have a theory about this because I've thought a lot about it. That one of the reasons there's not as much of an uproar about this grotesque behavior, at least in my opinion, not enough of an uproar, is it isn't that we don't care, it's that people feel so powerless in the face of these non-stop assaults from the Trump people that they try not to care. Because if you care, and then you realize there's not a hell of a lot you can do, it's even more painful than the underlying act. You watch a video of this?
Yeah, we have a picture of it up there. I think we can put up so people can see it too.
Yeah, but you got to watch. A picture's important, but you really have to watch. There it is. Look at the look on his face. And that's, I don't know, an axe or something, and he hits the window several times to break through there. And as we said, the wife of the man they grabbed said, our lawyer's coming, which I think it was a woman, she was. And the lawyer made a very convincing case. They were not looking
the wrong guy
for Juan Francisco Mendez. They're looking for someone in the same building whose name was Antonio. The number's 877-301-8970. How about the Boston, the American citizen lawyer? What a Newton?
Yeah.
She was told to self-deport herself
7 days.
by mistake?
Yeah, she was told. That was another mistake they made. She was a lawyer for people who had come across the border illegally. She was not a person who'd come herself. They kind of goofed that up. But you know the one that really killed me was this Columbia student, this Mohsen Modawi.
Oh, yeah.
He grew up in a Palestinian refugee camp, And he was interviewed on 60 Minutes 2 years ago, actually, and they talked about how he had seen an Israeli soldier kill his best friend when he was 10 years old, living in the occupied West Bank. And but he talked about how his feelings about the whole conflict had evolved. And he said in that interview that the fight for the freedom of Palestine and the fight against anti-Semitism go hand in hand, because injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, which I thought was a very beautiful thing to say. Well, he goes in, now he's been a green card holder for 10 years. He's wanting to become a United States citizen. He went in on Monday in Vermont for a naturalization interview, and he was hauled up and hauled out of there, and we don't know where he is, even though he was eligible for naturalization. He met all the requirements, and even though what he was doing was not, I mean, a terrible thing has happened in Gaza. You know, I think you can be, as we've talked about from the beginning, you can be 100% against any kind of discrimination against the Jewish people, Israel. You can be totally anti-Semitic, if that's a word, and still be very upset by the starvation of children, the children losing their legs, the children not having any medicines at the medical camp, and still be very upset about what's going on in Gaza. And if you grew up in a Palestinian refugee camp, aren't you supposed to speak out against what's happened to your own people?
Well, you're not supposed to. Obviously, you're entitled to.
Yeah, you're entitled to, but I think that making that some kind of horrible offense, even though he was holding those two things together, and he's hauled off.
Do you remember when Trump talked about the S-hole countries in Africa?
Yeah.
Why don't we have more immigrants from Norway? I mean, what's the message there? I want immigrants who look like me. Here's another one. You turned me on to this story. This is a clip of a New Hampshire real estate attorney. His name is Bashir Attallah. He's an American citizen.
Right,
I repeat,
American citizen.
a citizen. Mm-hmm. He's returning home after a weekend trip to Canada, and he's detained at the border. Listen to what Mr. Attallah has to say.
And on the way back, I was treated like a criminal. He asked me, exit the vehicle right now. And he reached for his gun. I said, okay, I'm exiting the vehicle. Keep your gun at your waist. They handcuffed me. They twisted my arm. Even if you ask questions, they say, we don't know, it's the government. So I had to, under duress, give him permission to look through my email, through my privileged information, and he made me write a statement signed by me saying that I gave him permission.
He's a citizen of the United States of America, Bashir Attallah, but because, he doesn't look like Donald Trump, apparently he's fair game too. So we want to know what your reaction to this is. If you're doing anything about it, if you are, what is it you're doing? Do you feel helpless in the face of this? You also mentioned this morning, how many international student visas have been undone, repealed, eliminated in New England?
They're saying it's 80, but that's an underestimation because a lot of colleges are not giving their full numbers of the numbers of kids that have been had their visas taken away. There are 79,000 international students in Massachusetts at these different colleges. Most of these transactions, revocation of visas, has happened at Northeastern, which has a lot of foreign students, 40 at least there. UMass Amherst is there, Harvard is there, Clark is there, Tufts. It goes right down the list. UMass Boston. It's at least 80. And again, in many of these situations, sometimes it's because they were involved in a pro-Palestinian protest, not leading it or not pro-Hamas, just upset about what's going on in Gaza. But many times, apparently, there is no explanation at all, according to the Globe. It's one student said they were given no reason at all for their termination. They were just terminated.
That's the way it works now. Jim in Arlington, you're first. Welcome to the show. Hi.
I'm just calling to say we hear repeatedly the names of these innocent victims as they're taken off the street by people in masks who themselves are unidentified. And I just think we should know who these people are snatching folks. Are they our neighbors? Are they members of the military? And what is it they're afraid of? Or is it the shame that they carry for the work that they do?
By the way, while they were amassed in Somerville, whoever they were in New Bedford, were not masked. They were actually, we saw one of them, who was the guy holding the axe or whatever it was before he broke the window, smiling, essentially. He was, I assume he's having a good time terrorizing this couple. But you're right, we don't know who they are, even though I would say the big problem is not them, even though it's pretty horrible. The problem are the Tom Homans and the Kristi Noems and all the people who are directing, and Trump, who are directing them to do what they're doing to other human beings in this country. Jim, thanks for the call.
I also think, we all know that immigration was a big issue, that Republicans and Democrats were very upset with their idea of disorder at the border, all these people coming over, and there seemed to be totally disorganization. Get the border under control, have some rules and regulations there. That's one thing, and I understand why people were very in favor of that. This is, I think, something different. Trump used to talk about getting rid of the bad hombres. Remember when he used to talk about that?
Indeed.
Or getting rid of people who had been convicted of crimes here, getting them out of the country. That's one thing. This is something different.
Well, do you think, I've thought about that, and I this is pure speculation. I think the goal is to create as much fear as you can, that, to use the term that they used, and used on that citizen lawyer in Newton, they'll self-deport. People will be so scared of the violence that's being perpetrated upon people, their neighbors, people like them, I'll just leave. And I assume, because I don't really, other than this macho sickness and people like Tom Homan, who revels in cruelty, and Carolyn Levitt at those disgusting press conferences, when we're going to play this a little later, when she's referring to Mr. Garcia, Abrego Garcia, who is in that El Salvadorian prison. She repeatedly refers to him as an MS-13 and a terrorist. And as the reporters have asked, and for those of you who think Trump's doing a good job here, if it turns out he's a member of this gang, why hasn't the Attorney General or Carolyn Levitt or somebody provided evidence to the media that he is a member of MS-13? The reason they haven't is because he isn't.
Well, again, this gets back to the lying they do. There was a story in the paper today about an undocumented migrant arrested in the Lawrence fentanyl sting.
I saw that.
Now, if you're dealing drugs and you're dealing fentanyl,
get rid of them.
Yeah, exactly. That's a different story. But, a lot of the people, the international students that come here to go to school, you know what they do? They stay here, and they start companies, and they add to our economy, and they add to, what has long been a history of the United States of America of having people coming here from other countries and prospering and doing great things. I don't think this is...
Would you come here as a foreign student now?
No.
Nor would I.
No, and something else, if you're worried about, I've said this before, but foreign students make up a significant number of the students at all these colleges, and they usually pay full freight, so they make it easier for colleges to give money to American students who don't have 90 grand or 100 grand to go to Wellesley College or 90 grand to go to Boston College. That's going to hurt your pocketbook, because you are going to have, the colleges will have less money, and you'll end up paying more. Lisa from Medford, thank you for calling.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Jim. Hi, Marjorie. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
Always nice to talk to you.
Thank you.
So what I'm doing, so obviously I'm with you. This is just a horrendous thing that we're experiencing. And what scares me the most about these instances right now is that I feel like they're test cases, and we're already seeing the move towards trying to imprison. Trump said it to Healey. Yeah. We're going to start sending you American people, right? So what I'm trying to do, yes, exactly, homegrown. Thank you, Jim. I joined Indivisible, and I have started going to my city hall, city councilor meetings in Medford. They passed a resolution to support people. One of the city councilors has bought those red cards that you may have heard of. Yeah. They basically give people rights. They tell people what their rights are. And one of the things that I would like to do through my involvement with Indivisible is have digestible information so people understand their rights. Not just immigrants. Americans need to understand what their rights are, what due process is. I think we're just missing this, and it's allowing people to dismiss the horrors that we're inflicting on people that are here legally.
Lisa, can I tell you something? I agree with every word you said, with a huge however. Of course, we should make sure that everybody understands what their rights are. This administration doesn't care about what your rights are. So while it's critical you know them and attempt to assert them, their responses, as we're seeing in this Garcia case, Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, is saying this morning, he is not coming back to our country, even though the Supreme Court of the United States says you have to facilitate his return. They don't care about these rights. And I think so. I think we have to both educate as best we can, while at the same time, we're honest enough to say, but don't hold your breath about our government honoring your rights, because they don't. And I think, let me just say
he's already defying the United States Supreme Court.
I just said it. Of course he is. But let me say one last thing. Lisa, thanks for the call. We've been very critical of Alan Garber, the president of Harvard, who finally did the right thing the other day. I am a huge believer, and many people have said this on our show, the way you deal with bullies, Michael Curry's going to be here in a minute, talks about this too, is when you give in, it empowers them and enables them. When you stand up to them, it empowers and enables other people to stand up to them. I think things like Harvard, we're going to talk about this law firm, Sussman, something or other, that represented Dominion Systems against Fox News. When people stand up, other people feel I can do that too. So it's really important that people like you, Lisa, with Indivisible, the Harvards, the law firms do the right thing and stand up for democracy. Thanks for the call.
Listen to this. This is from Ken in Worcester. He says he looks like a military guy. I guess he's got his hair cut short or something like that. So he's got his short hair. He says, at 10:30 this morning, I'm at Dunkin' Donuts. I pull up to the window to pay, and the girl who takes his payment looks at him and starts looking very nervous as he's waiting for the order. And then he says he notices 4 people behind the window walk away, and they may have been people that look like they came from another country, and he gets his order handed back to him by someone who looks very American, non-immigrant, and he thinks it's because they were afraid he was somebody from ICE or the cops there to take them away.
By the way, before we get back to the calls, Maggie Haberman of the New York Times written a piece which totally underlines the bullying issue. Law firms made deals with Trump. Now he wants more from them. When you show weakness, bullies understand that they can keep terrorizing you, and Trump is a master.
Because much of his first 80 or 90 days, whatever it's been all about revenge and retaliation against his enemies. I mean, that's obviously clear. He's not really worried about food prices, since we may see them rise soon. It's this. They're talking about how they're going to have $40 million or $100 million in pro bono work. Wait till these lawyers find out the cases they're going to be sent out to.
We know already what some of them are. Representing coal mines. He said it at the press conference with the coal miners. One of the first things they're going to do is represent coal mines in getting their licenses restored. By the way,
but he's also been going after
the total so far is $950 million of free legal services that Trump's
So everybody's entitled to a defense. A lot of defense lawyers have represented people that murdered people and stuff like that. But we'll see how these lawyers feel going out and representing clients that normally they would never in a million years represent. Anyway, we're talking about sort of these really sad and upsetting stories about the government kind of acting a little bit like, what you see in authoritarian countries with people going after, arresting people with weapons in hands and smashing windows and dragging them out of cars. This is the United States of America. What do you think? 877-301-8970. 70. I thought
we only had the number for 12 years.
I thought I was giving my daughter's number there for a second.
Why don't you give out your daughter's number? Because we have too many calls anyway. Let them call
Wasn't my daughter's number. Okay. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Musicians on both sides of the U.S.-Mexico border know Tijuana as a musical melting pot.
And being able to create whatever they want without anybody telling them, no, don't do this, don't do that, do it this way. No, everybody's free to do whatever they want. TJ, I think, has that history from going back, decades.
We will take you there next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Rockland Trust Bank, helping foster healthy relationships with money by providing education and resources to the community, one neighborhood at a time. Rockland Trust Bank, where each relationship matters. Member FDIC. And Mass General Brigham Health Plan, ranked #1 in member satisfaction among commercial health plans in Massachusetts by J.D. Power for the second consecutive year. Details at mgbhp.org/everyday.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Mark Regan and Jim Browder. We're live at the library, streaming youtube.com/GBH News. Back here Friday, not Tuesday, because it's Marathon Cleanup Day, but we'll be live from Brighton. We're talking about the horror shows, not just in some faraway place, but in our own communities. New Bedford, Somerville, New Hampshire, whatever. You know what I did during the break, just to work myself into even more of a frenzy that I'm in? I rewatched the 30-second video of these agents smashing the window of Juan Francisco Mendez's car down there. And it's like another horrible country that you'd never want anybody to have to live in.
Now, here's someone that we have to take issue with. He's telling us, this is a texter, provide evidence that Garcia is not a member of MS-13, Jim. Again, in the United States of America, you are innocent until you are proven guilty. They've got to provide the evidence. You are entitled to due process, and you are entitled to due process even if you came into this country illegally.
What's the name of the person?
They didn't sign.
Can I be, we're not supposed to do this. Can you be any dumber than that person? Okay, let's say your name is John. John, I'm going to put you in jail right now. In whatever community you live in.
We're going to send you to El Salvador.
And by the way, that's even better. Because you're homegrown, we'll assume you're homegrown. We'll send you to El Salvador. And after the fact, you have to provide evidence that you have not broken any laws. I mean, the narrow-mindedness and cruelty of a significant swath of Americans because of their fealty to this autocrat is just unbelievable.
But again, I think people listen to lying podcasters, lying news stations.
But by the way, it doesn't matter.
We've got
you can listen to Fox News.
Lying sitting there in the Oval Office.
Is there a 6-year-old in this country who doesn't know the term, as you just said, innocent until proven guilty? Do you think this person knows that phrase?
I don't know. Apparently, they don't know.
Eric from Arlington. We met Eric last week. He's a competitive whistler. Today's not a whistling kind of day, but we're really glad you called in, Eric.
I think we need some whistles at this point. Come on, Eric. We need some whistling.
Welcome to the show, Eric. How are you?
Before you tell us anything, give us a tune real quick. Come on, Eric.
Well, actually, what I was thinking of is that you got your new theme music, and I was thinking maybe you need something whistled instead. But,
can I tell you something? In all seriousness, hey, when you're done, don't hang up. One of our producers is going to talk to you. We're taking you up on your offer.
But will you give us a little whistle right now, though, Eric?
All right. Jim wanted to hear Rhapsody in Blue, so I'll give you that really quick.
Oh, please, yeah.
Wow.
That is... It's one of my favorite songs of all time. This is Eric Gershwin calling from Arlington. Okay, what are you calling about, Eric, today? What's up? Don't hang up when we're done. Go ahead. What's up?
No, I'm not going to hang up now or when we're done. But no, I'm calling because I think the line between what ICE and whoever else is going with them on these raids and Hitler's brown shirts has basically evaporated at this point.
Well, a lot of people are talking about Gestapo tactics.
They are. I mean, they simply are. I mean, they are. These people, luckily, are not losing their lives, but they are losing their freedom in the most grotesque of ways. So, I mean...
you think about mass murderers...
Eric, stay on hold. Don't go away.
Like Whitey Bulger. We all saw, him getting... We didn't see him actually getting arrested in the parking garage, but it was a pretty peaceful arrest, and you saw him getting walked across the tarmac when he got off the helicopter to go. Or you think of Luigi Mangione, the young man, I should say, that just... allegedly, but we saw him do it.
Killed the healthcare executive.
The healthcare guy. There were no breaking...
They treated far better. That's that is a brilliant point.
It's pretty... and those are usually FBI people. One of these guys down in New Bedford supposed he had an FBI jacket on, but I'm not sure that they were with the FBI or not.
Eric, thanks for the call. Appreciate it.
8970. Yeah, we need to be constantly reminded of people like this texter that just texted us that everyone in this country has most of the rights, not all of the rights, but most of the rights under the United States Constitution, freedom of speech being one. In other words, they should be able to protest what they see going on in Gaza without fear of retribution. That's in our Constitution.
Yeah, I'm hoping that these texters are just trying to troll us and aggravate us because they're doing it very successfully. But you think they mean what they say? I sure as hell hope that's not true.
Anybody who's got friends that are in that right-wing news bubble, Fox News, certain podcasters, certain radio listeners, or who listen to what the president himself says, because he lies. Pam Bondi lies. Mark Rubio lies.
That's true. You're right about that.
So if you're not like doing what we do, reading all this stuff every day, you may believe them.
Let's go to Marie in Bolton. Marie, welcome to the show. Thank you for calling. Hi.
Hi. Thank you very much for taking the call.
Sure.
I had a moment with my son. He is a young adult living in Tucson. He works for an international refugee agency that works for specifically LGBTQ plus individuals. He speaks very fluent Spanish. He's covered with tattoos, but they're all flowers. And he's, a little darker skinned because he's been in the sun a lot. Mm-hmm. And I asked him what he is doing to protect himself. American citizen, born here, Irish, German, English background. But I had to have a talk with him because we're terrified that he could be mistaken. And to have a tiny glimpse into what people are feeling who are genuinely on the targeted list. And so I'm doing everything I can, shoveling money, the ACLU, protests, writing letters, everything I can do, as kind of like a privileged white woman. But that glimpse is terrifying.
Well, Marie, you raised an issue that we should talk more about. Thank you for your call. Good luck with your son. Is the fear factor that we do talk about, but not enough. The vast majority of people who are here, either undocumented or don't have white skin, have to be living in terror. How many examples? We're going to talk to Michael Curry, head of the League of Community Health Centers, in a minute. He's told us people hesitate to go to the doctor. Parents hesitate to send their kids to schools. Many people are too scared to go to work. But beyond those overt behaviors that they're not engaging in, fear is a horrible thing to live with. And this administration is working as hard as they can to instill fear in the broadest spectrum of people who, as I say, don't look like Donald Trump. And I don't mean just they don't have an orange face. I mean, they're not white people.
My blonde-haired, blue-eyed American daughter is starting college in August and preparing her transfer apps to go outside the country. She feels it's not safe for her friends and neighbors right now. She doesn't want to be part of it or have her own rights to free speech threatened on campus. Who knows what's coming next?
Nadine, you're in Boston. Welcome to the show. Hi, thanks for calling.
Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
I just wanted to quickly say that I've been living there for 36 years, and last week I had a conversation with one of the neighbors, and I was just asking him what he thinks about what we're going through. And he said, right now we have the best president ever in the entire history of the United States, and we were this close to become a communist country. And I said, what do you think we're going now? And then I said, do you believe everything that comes out of Trump's mouth? For example, sending $50 million to $100 million for condoms. And he goes, oh, so you're a Hamas supporter. And he just got worse and worse. I said, no, I'm a Palestinian Israeli supporter. I'm against any kind of violence. And it got really, really bad. And I am scared of this guy now.
Wow.
That's a horrible story, Nadine. I mean, that's a horrible story.
Well, people did believe that $50 million for condoms. Elon Musk talked about the $50 million for condoms story, remember?
Well, and they also talked about the money that went to Sesame Street for kids in some Middle Eastern country, and the former head of USAID and former chair of the Republican Party of Massachusetts, Andrew Natsios, the day before he was with us, he says there is no better antidote to Al-Qaeda and things like that than spreading that kind of message.
Nadine, I'm sorry for that interaction, but I think you're right. I think that there's a lot of people who think he is the greatest president we ever had. I'm hoping that won't last.
But thank you for having the courage to tell the story too, Nadine. We really, really appreciate it. How'd you like to be in that situation?
It's horrible.
The average person, I know we talked a lot about Musk's comment, religious leaders, others talking about the end of empathy in this country. When people hear Nadine tell that story, do you think the average person can relate to that, even if they don't think it's going to happen to them? Or do it's just a different person? I mean,
we have Pete in New Hampshire who thinks that this is great too. And he also says Trump was presumed guilty of Russian collusion, which was proven to be false. He was never presumed, some people may have thought he was guilty. He wasn't guilty of collusion. So he didn't go to prison for that, Pete. He wasn't whisked off someplace to pay for that crime, right? Because you're innocent until proven guilty.
And he was proven guilty 36 times, 36 felonies.
That's right.
Yeah.
But what was true, Pete, and I'm sure you know this, is that the Russians did interfere with the election in 2016 and in 2020 and in 2024. So we have proven that, but there was no collusion proven.
Well, there's another thing. He was not sent to an El Salvadorian prison, as far as I know. Donald Trump, is that correct?
Well, under his own statements, sending American-grown people. He could be, because it's 34,
who would send him? J.D. Vance?
felonies. Well, maybe Pam Bondi would send him. I don't know.
We got to go.
We don't have time. Okay, I'm sorry.
We're going to return to this. We promise. We're going to talk to Juliette Kayyem about this at noon. So please stay with us.
Yep. Up next.
That's correct,
Lost on the wrong
Show
page.
goes in order.
Okay, we're going to be talking with Michael Curry up next. He's CEO of the Mass League of Community Health Centers. We're going to talk to him about drastic cuts for teen mental health funds. We're also going to talk to him about more RFK vaccine problems and a lot of stuff impacting health because of the cuts from the National Institute of Health. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, the shot heard round the world. As the 250th anniversary of the American Revolutionary War approaches, we revisit the battles of Lexington and Concord, the first major military campaign in the fight for independence. From there, it's a witness to history. We'll hear an archival recording recalling a woman's experiences of Patriots' Day 1775. That and more on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Comcast Business, committed to providing connectivity for your business with network and cybersecurity solutions. Comcast Business, powering possibilities. Restrictions apply. To learn more, you can call or visit ComcastBusiness.com. And Liberty Mutual Insurance. Liberty believes progress happens when people feel secure and exists to help people embrace today and pursue tomorrow. Learn more at libertymutual.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're at the Boston Public Library. We'll be back here on Friday. We will not be back on Tuesday because they're cleaning up after the marathon. Governor Healey will join us for an hour of Ask the Governor on April 25th, which I think is a Friday. Joined now on Zoom by Michael Curry. Michael's the CEO of the Mass League of Community Health Centers, on the board of the National NAACP. Michael, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. Good to see you.
Always be glad to be with you. I just looked at the two of you on the Mass Pike.
Oh, yeah. We look great on the Mass Pike, don't we?
We love that.
I had a lot of makeup on that day, a lot of nice lighting. It's very nice. It's really embarrassing if you go someplace, Michael, and people say, oh, I saw you in the Mass Pike, and then they see you in person, they say, oh,
That's
okay.
not true. That you were so...
Oh, okay. That must have been a while ago. But in any case, yeah, thank you very much. In any case, we have talked incessantly about the crisis of teen mental health in the United States of America, and obviously it impacts kids here. And the theme has been that there isn't nearly enough. The waiting lists go on forever. There are not enough beds, et cetera. But it looks like things are going to get even worse than they already are.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the initial data, but I think post-COVID mental health is a crisis that was exacerbated by COVID-19. You know, to the folks who are on the front lines of providing mental health services. I actually just spoke as the keynote for the Graken Center out in Worcester at the DCU on substance use disorder, right? And the challenges we're facing there. I think what we're seeing across the country, and we're seeing here in Massachusetts, is the need for services, the need for culturally competent, proficient services, the need for funding to make sure people can get care when they need it and when they're ready for those services. But yet, some of these federal threats are terrifying us because we'll have to walk back much of the progress we've made in Massachusetts.
But it's not just, while the federal threats are real and horrifying, even a state government like ours, which seems pretty seriously committed to mental health, what at least the stories I've read suggest is the funding, even with some increases, can't nearly catch up or stay caught up with the demand. That's true, right?
Yeah, this is the terrifying part about when you're in a crisis, pre-Trump presidency, and then the presidency, this administration comes in and are looking at significant, and the numbers you've thrown out and others, that they're looking at $880 billion in cuts, and that it'll probably come to programs and services like Medicaid and all the other things we care about. That being said, I have the fortune of meeting with our A&F secretary on a regular basis. I just met with his staff and the secretary yesterday, with the Secretary of Health and Human Services, the governor, and others. And I think in the legislature, I think that there's going to be a real challenge for all of us, including those I just mentioned, to meet the objectives of the budget, right? To balance a budget, but also to meet the needs of those in the community that need services. If we are cut in the way that we think we will, we'll have to get in a room and decide what are the critical services that we need to hold on to in order to save lives. And I think I heard that from the secretary yesterday. I've heard that repeatedly from the governor and our friends in the legislature.
I hope it happens. Speaking of the legislature, you're far kinder to them than we are, and you're closer to them. So, no, you are. It's real. Yeah. You work with them much more closely than we do. But one area where it seems to me there's a colossal sense of urgency and apparently a desire to do the right thing, but for some reason we can't get there. I never heard the term navigator till a few years ago. And how I learned about it was in the healthcare setting, is that people had so much trouble navigating healthcare systems that some systems were helping. You were assigned a person, and that person helped you find whoever you had to find or whatever you had to find to get your healthcare needs met. An interesting thing that I wasn't even aware of, and I don't know if it started during Baker, but I know Governor Baker supported it, and apparently legislators and the governor still do, is sort of a one-stop approach to low-income people applying for things like Section 8 housing, food stamps, a whole variety of programs that are available, each of which apparently has an arcane application system, and each application system is different from each other application system. So I assume you think it's a good idea, and assuming you do, are we on the verge, particularly in these stressed times, of having a one-stop kind of thing that makes applications and receipt of benefits you're entitled to easier, Michael Curry?
Yeah, I think for all your listeners that think about their own administrative burdens that they face, right? So whether it's the registry of motor vehicles and renewing your license, or reapplying for a scholarship or a program that you participate in, right? We all have these complex administrative burdens that we often find ourselves letting the mail pile up, not responding to them timely because we're so overwhelmed with what it requests and the information it requires us to gather. Our taxes would be a great example of that. So the reality is in these services that people need desperately, we can't afford for them to get overwhelmed, paralyzed by the administrative burdens. So when you can have a patient navigator in a healthcare sense, or a navigator more broadly, be that informed person to walk you through the process, to make sure you're aware of the deadlines, to help you collect the documents you need and the information you need, to be your advocate throughout the process. Of course that works. And I actually will throw it to the federal issue that if we run into a situation where they put work requirements on Medicaid as an example, right? All the administrative burden, I think the intention behind the administration is to create such a burden that the majority of people on Medicaid are already working, will then not fill out the paperwork and not be renewed as Medicaid recipients. We're going to have navigators and assisters ready to lean in and support people with signing back up for Medicaid and renewing. So I think, quite frankly, this always made sense. It's unfortunate that we've not adopted this and embraced it with funding.
And is your perception that they take this seriously and urgently on Beacon Hill?
Yeah, I think absolutely. Everyone I've talked to on Beacon Hill understands it. The challenge is this funding. If we can afford to pay for it, and of course, the tax revenue, we're watching, there's a tail on a lot of these recession-related things with tariffs that we might not realize until, 6 months from now or a year from now. I hope that we prioritize this in particular.
Talking to Michael Curry.
We've obviously been talking a lot about Harvard University and their $2 billion in frozen funds so far. We don't know. The Trump administration had talked about $9 billion. I'm confused. The Mass General Brigham head says this isn't going to affect the health system there, but I don't know how that can possibly be. But you know more than I do.
Well, I'm not sure I fully understand it either, Marjorie, actually. But I think what I've understood to be the case is that there's a distinction between the entity of Harvard, and it's the sort of the massive institution that is Harvard, the academic part of the organization, and then the Harvard affiliated entities like hospitals. And there is an arm's length separate entities that have been created in those cases. So that makes sense that if you go after Harvard, the university, then there's some understanding, and particularly coming out of the administration, that this is targeted at the academic institutions, not at the hospital systems. However, that doesn't necessarily bear out to be the case, as we already know they're defunding the research at hospitals. Yeah. So when you say you don't understand it, I don't either, because they're defunding, looking to defund the academic institutions like Harvard and the research that happens on the campuses, which I don't want people to lose sight of. Critical research that saves our lives happens on those campuses at Harvard and other institutions. And then at the hospitals, there are critical research and services that are offered by the hospital system. So whether there is a direct impact now or there will be in the future, I think it's probably inevitable that if you go after Harvard, the academic institutions, you will inevitably impact the hospitals as well. But I defer to Ann Klebanski and the leaders of MGB, the hospital systems that are looking at this much more closely than I am.
Speaking of Ann Klebanski, there's a piece by Jonathan Salzman and some others at the Globe, the title of which is exactly what you're talking about. MGB chief says Harvard funding freeze shouldn't affect health system. And she says that it won't, based on our perception, academic thing. But I have to say, if there was ever a time, Michael and Marjorie, where solidarity in the face of Trump assaults matters, I am so with a doctor who's quoted in the same piece from MGB. She's a pediatrician at Mass General for Children, Dr. Marjorie Kern, who criticizes her boss, essentially, for saying, don't worry, we're fine, or we will be fine. It is difficult to believe that cuts directed at Harvard will not affect the MGB hospitals. But here's the key line. Now is the time for clinical and academic centers to stand together, not create space between them. I mean, my reaction to that was, what end was served by the head of MGB, Dr. Klebanski, saying, don't worry, it's only going to be Harvard, not the money that flows through Harvard to us, Michael Curry?
Well, I'm not sure that there's a clear distinction, right? I said separate organizations.
I agree.
But if you're doing research that is a partnership between the academic institution and the hospital system, and that is defunded, the research is impacted. That being said, I think there's a tendency by all of us who are in CEO leader positions to try to create calm for staff, for patients, for communities, so that they don't overreact and then sort of not show up for care or not participate in the clinical trial or whatever the implications of fear, right? And that sometimes that guarding against people overreacting can impact the messaging. So to your point, Jim, I think the reality is I love the fact that people like this researcher, this physician, and others are saying, no, you know what, we should all be united in fighting against any cut to any program that defunds the work that we do, whether it's on a college campus or in a hospital lab. We're all being impacted. I actually love that messaging, because I think we're hearing that across universities too. And Columbia should be standing in locked arms with Harvard and all the other Ivy Leagues and other institutions across the country to say, no, you can't tell us to take DEI out of what we do. You can't tell us to change who we admit and how we admit them. You can't tell us what we talk about and what we teach. I don't think this really changes until we all stand together and resist. And I think this is another example of that.
I just want to mention that the Globe also had a story about this researcher at Harvard's T.H. Chan School of Public Health, which is part of the university.
Sarah Fortune, she was on Greater Boston with me a couple of years ago.
Yes, and she talked about waking up Tuesday morning or get in. I think it was Tuesday morning. Maybe she knew Monday night. But in any case, that her $60 million contract with the National Institutes of Health was down the tubes. And she studies tuberculosis, which kills a lot of people, more than 1 million people a year. And
people think it's not a big deal around the world because it's not a big deal here anymore. It's huge around the world.
It's huge around the world, but you still have it here in some cases, I believe, too.
Yeah.
I think, and people that are living in bad situations. In any case, she said they're going to have to they're trying to figure out what they're going to do, but she thinks they're going to have to shut down this study of tuberculosis. So that's a big deal.
That is.
Yeah, we got to remind people that when we do research in this country, and we have cutting edge research, and we're in the mecca of research here in Massachusetts, the research is not just for Boston. It's not just for the Northeast. It's not just for the U.S. It's for the world. And when we do that research, of course, what we're guarding against is that next virus, that spread of TB, that measles outbreak that is maybe disparately impacting other communities across the globe will come here if we don't guard against it, if we don't have the right response to it. So it is short-sighted. It is idiotic to think that you can cut funding because it's not impacting the United States. That is not good science 101. It is not a good public health strategy, and we have to push back against that. We should be leading, both here and across the globe, to have cutting-edge research. And I think credit again to Harvard, to Mass General Brigham, and the other hospital systems who lead the globe in medical research.
You know, Michael, I wasn't going to bring this up today, but since you mentioned DEI a minute ago, just to get this out of my system, the administration's anti-DEI, otherwise known as pro-racism agenda, when I woke up the other day to read the front page of the New York Times to see that at the Naval Academy Library, I think it was, Hegseth had ensured that Maya Angelou's I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, gone. A book about women victims of the Holocaust, gone. The Bell Curve and Hitler's Mein Kampf, they stay. What did you? I know it's a stupid question.
Don't forget, they're on an anti-Semitism crusade, so that's why they're
exactly.
books about the
Very
Holocaust.
good point, Marjorie. Yeah. That's a very good point. What do you think when you saw? What do you think when you saw that headline, Michael Curry?
Well, part of what both of us, all three of us, talk about sometimes, and I've been digging more into this whole white supremacy thing that I think most people have shied away from having a conversation about. But if you didn't know, there's a hip hop phrase, if you don't know, now you know. The reality is, if you didn't see it before, the fact that we're talking about DEI, highly qualified Black and brown and other federal employees, veterans, women, 43% of the federal government is women, 43+% of women, veterans, 30%. We're now terminating jobs under this DEI banner. People are accusing people of flying planes and helicopters into each other, which was factually untrue. And then we're seeing white men appointed to positions that they're grossly unqualified for. So now I have to ask the question to all of us, what was this DEI affirmative action case all about in the first place? Yeah. The reality is people have always gotten jobs who are unqualified because of who they are, what they look like, what neighborhoods they lived in, and quite frankly, what privilege and power they had. Now we're seeing it very plainly. It's an open sight for people to look at and say, wait a minute, that's a contradiction. I thought I had to have 3 degrees. I thought I had to have 10 plus, 15 years plus experience. I thought I had to have 4 stars. And now the bar is being lowered under this administration. Please take a second, everybody listening. And now I want you to revisit this DEI conversation, which has been derailed, mischaracterized. You've been bamboozled and hoodwinked. And now start to revisit this conversation that this was always about creating equal access, opportunity, having an inclusive environment in business and government, in society where all people can thrive and live to be their best selves. I'm equally irritated, Jim. And I would say this last thing about the DEI battle on college campuses. I want to caution people as they say that this was an attack on college campuses because of their bad response to anti-Semitism. as has been said recently, this was never about anti-Semitism out of this administration.
No,
they're
not.
using that.
Yeah.
They're using that as a ruse because they want to be able to go into these college campuses and they want to gin up disgust and disappointment in these universities. Now, did these universities fail in many cases to respond to what was happening on the campus? Absolutely. But the people who are saying this are also the neo-Nazi, Aryan, and folks who are baiting and empowering those communities. This ain't about anti-Semitism on these campuses. This is about going after universities for trying to be inclusive.
You know what really cracks me up in these discussions? You hear these people say, you know, race should not be a factor in admission to the university. When a race, your race, Michael, eliminated you out of contention for decades and decades and decades. So maybe for we've had affirmative action for how many years? Maybe since the late 60s, something like that. Yeah. But for all those years, Harvard was around, 1620? So for 200 and some years, race, forget about it. You don't even look this way.
What I love when I was in college, when we would talk about this, and I went to college in the late 80s, early 90s, and the professors would always say, okay, this is a race. And basically, everyone else in the race has been allowed to start running an hour before you.
Yeah, okay.
And all of a sudden, the gun goes off for you, and you're running to try to catch up. But then, of course, the system is built against you catching up. And now that you say, okay, now, because you intentionally let me start later, and you're giving me opportunities to catch up, now they're pushing back on that. So I think to your point, Marjorie, anybody who doesn't understand affirmative action or what these DEI programs were intended to do your homework.
Yeah.
Actually understand that for most of this country's history, my lifetime, right? I'm a 68 baby, right? The 1960s to 70s was busing, right? The segregation of children in schools, relegating children to underperforming schools, Black and brown children. And now we're talking about how do you make up for generations of forced poverty, a lack of education, lack of access to housing, equal access. And people are feeling it's the zero-sum game. People feel like I'll lose something if I allow other people to catch up.
You know, before you go, can we end? I was going to say on an up note.
It's
a
good.
down
We need
note.
an up note.
Well, it's a down note,
too. Oh, it's a down note.
Because
okay.
it's both. Phil Johnston, who was one of the most wonderful, public-spirited people I've ever known in my life, died about a week ago. He was head of Health and Human Services for Governor Dukakis, regional head of Health and Human Services for President Clinton. He ran the RFK, I think, not Junior, RFK Foundation, I think, for just one of the most wonderful people. And when I went to his memorial the other day, it's sort of the ultimate tribute to what you do for a living and the people who work with you. The thing said, in lieu of flowers, please make a contribution to the League of Community Health Centers. I mean, you only have 30 seconds, but how'd that feel, Michael Terry?
It was overwhelming and it brought me to tears. Phil was a big advocate and champion for community health, for primary care, for community health centers, not just in Massachusetts, but across the country. We were honored to be the recipient of any donations in his name. We in the health center community lost a champion, just like we lost Senator Kennedy, who was a champion for health centers. Losing Phil Johnston will have a mark in this movement, but we get to tell his story for generations to come.
We'll talk more about him. One of the finest people I've ever met. He really was. Michael, it's good to see you. Be well.
Thank you very
much,
much,
Good to see you
Michael.
both as well.
Take care.
We have been speaking with Michael Curry, CEO of the Mass League of Community Health Centers, on the board of the National NAACP, co-chair of a city-led investigation into the impacts of the closure of Dorchester's Kearney Hospital. Coming up after noontime news, Harvard national security expert Juliette Kayyem is here with advice on how to pace the rage, of course. She's also going to talk about Harvard fighting back, some law firms fighting, some not. And the Trump administration is now forcing federal workers to take lie detector tests. Listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
It's not over yet. More smart conversation about community issues is up ahead with Jim Braude and Marjorie Egan on Boston Public Radio. Right after a news update from NPR. Stay with us here on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And the Boston Symphony Orchestra, announcing the 2025 season of Tanglewood, showcasing the beauty of incredible surroundings and world-class music. Tanglewood, where music goes for the summer. Tanglewood.org. Can forests help cool the planet and stop species extinction? Follow scientists in a quest to understand our complex forest ecosystems. Watch Nova, Secrets of the Forest, tonight at 9 on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, head on Hour 2 of Boston Public Radio, live from the Boston Public Library. The murder attempt on Pennsylvania's governor, the latest on the Maryland man stuck in that prison in El Salvador, and more bad news on the security front with Juliette Kayyem, Harvard's national security expert.
I'm Marjorie Egan. Then, for some fun, it's Milk Street's Christopher Kimball out with yet another fabulous cookbook, this time exploring forgotten recipes of Italy. He'll bring some dishes from the book and debunk some Italian food myths. Does your pasta water have to be as salty as the sea? How salty is the sea? Anyway, all that and two more things next on the second hour of Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Windsor Johnston. The White House has confirmed that President Trump is considering deporting certain U.S. citizens, specifically those he has labeled as violent criminals, to foreign prisons. NPR's Mara Liasson reports.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says that sending American citizens to foreign prisons is something the administration is looking into. President Trump also told a Fox News program that he's interested in sending American citizens to the same Salvadoran prison that is currently housing alleged gang members deported from the U.S. The president told Fox he'd like to deport Americans born on U.S. soil, people he called homegrowns.
We are looking into it and we want to do it. I would love to do that.
It's clear from the president's comments that he's not sure whether deporting U.S. citizens to foreign jails would be constitutional, and at least for now, he's waiting to determine the answer before he tries to do it. Mara Liasson, NPR News.
Just a short time ago, Attorney General Pam Bondi reiterated that the Maryland man who was wrongfully deported to El Salvador last month is not coming back to the U.S. Meanwhile, the Justice Department says it's suing the state of Maine's Education Department for not complying with the government's push to ban transgender athletes in girls' sports. Attorney General Pam Bondi announced the legal action this morning.
Today, the Department of Justice is announcing a civil lawsuit against the Maine Department of Education. The state of Maine is discriminating against women by failing to protect women in women's sports. Pretty basic stuff.
The Justice Department argues Maine is violating the federal Title IX by allowing transgender girls to play on girls' sports teams. The state says the law does not prevent schools from allowing transgender athletes to participate. Prices for automobile parts are rising because of tariffs, and this is making it more expensive to buy, repair, and maintain a car. NPR's Camila Dominowski reports it also means there will be pressure on auto insurance rates to rise.
Pandemic-era supply chain snarls pushed up repair costs and sent insurance rates soaring. Now, tariffs on steel, aluminum, and many imports could do the same again. Shannon Martin, an insurance expert at Bankrate, says when insurance companies face higher costs, they have to increase what they charge to match.
If you get into a car accident, they know that the cost of that accident is going to cost them a lot more in the future than it would have in the past.
Rates won't go up overnight. There's also huge uncertainty around nearly every facet of these tariffs, which makes it hard to predict consumer impacts. Camila Dominowski, NPR News.
On Wall Street, the Dow Jones Industrial Average is down 56 points. You're listening to NPR News from Washington.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. A new UMass Amherst poll finds just more than half of respondents disapprove of President Donald Trump's performance in his first few months in office. We have more from New England Public Media's Adam Frenier.
51% of those surveyed don't like the job the president is doing, while 44% are in favor. And responses to most topics follow party lines, with a vast majority of Democrats disagreeing with Trump. Alex Theodoridis is one of the pollsters and a political scientist at UMass Amherst. He says a majority of respondents believe issues such as improving the economy and lowering prices should be amongst the president's top priorities, not tariffs and other areas.
Very few voters said that they wanted priorities to be things like cutting the federal workforce, or going after DEI programs, or going after political correctness on college campuses.
A majority of those polled also say they are concerned Trump will not respect the rule of law, will defy a court order, and could declare war against a foreign adversary.
Adam Frenier with Connecting the Commonwealth. Well, just in time for peak fishing season, fishermen and women on Martha's Vineyard are bracing for changes to their summer fishing fun. Martha's Vineyard Times reports that Massachusetts regulators are this close to implementing new regulations on false albacore and Atlantic bonito catches. For the first time, the state is set to impose a minimum length requirement of 16 inches for both species of fish and a combined daily catch limit of 5 fish. Both types of fish are very popular with sport fishermen. They're also very tasty. 48 degrees in Boston. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from Drexel University, whose cooperative education program positions students to explore future careers and discover their ideal profession before graduation. This is experiential education. More at drexel.edu.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio. Jim Brady, Marjorie Egan. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and with our legal counsel-approved streaming music. Now that we've fixed up our copyright problems, we are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We'll be back here on Friday for live music. Not here next Tuesday, though, because it's the day after the marathon when they'll be cleaning up around here, because, of course, the finish line is right outside our windows here. But on April 25th, we'll be joined by Maura Healey for another edition of Ask the Governor. Hello again, Jim.
By the way, for those who are not here or not looking, maybe can see the backdrop on streaming. It's pretty exciting when all this stuff goes up.
Yeah.
The stands are up, and it's great. In any case, we're joined now at the desk by national security expert Juliette Kayyem. Juliette's a former assistant secretary for Homeland Security under Barack Obama, faculty chair of the Homeland Security program at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government, and a contributing writer at The Atlantic. Hello, Juliette.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi, everyone.
Hi there.
So I'm with you, though, on the, it's so fun to be down here with all the excitement with the marathon.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
It is. It's also exciting to be with you, of course.
Oh, thank you. I feel the same way.
And
Thank you.
people look so fit. I feel like everyone's like...
Yeah, all these runners.
Sprightly
a lot of them are right across the street at the Lennox Hotel.
I know.
They're all
When I
running around their little shorts with those incredible abs.
I did the Boston Marathon.
You did?
Once.
Oh, good for you.
Once.
That's why she brought this up. It's pretty
No,
obvious.
I was
That's
going to
where
say,
we were going.
No, the truth is never again.
Yeah.
Like, I still have, like, it is...
How many years ago did you do it?
I want to say 2007, so almost 20 years.
You know, unlike you, I will not bring up that I ran New York twice. So let's just move on, okay?
The Newton Hills are a little tough. That's
They
what
are.
They say.
I can't do it again.
But Juliette Kayyem, you get action. Last week we talked to you about what Harvard University should do from these threats from the President of the United States, and you said they should fight back.
Yeah,
and
well,
now,
me and a lot of people, but yes.
They are fighting back.
It's been a good week. I mean, it's the beginning, not the end. No one should think that, like, oh, Harvard spoke and everything is good. Yeah, no, and I liked what the president, Alan Garber, said in terms of the values of universities generally, as well as what Harvard contributes. Specifically, it's been 2 years in coming. It's not been since Trump. I mean, this has been since the war between Israel and Hamas happened, and all of the fights on the universities about free speech and anti-Semitism. My university has been anything but on offense, right? I mean, it has let everyone else define it. And 2 years later, essentially, or a year and a half later, it finally has a document that says, you know what, we actually have a story to tell. And what's interesting is this letter that came out that said, basically, we cannot accept your conditions. The letter that the Trump administration sent on Friday night, which I had not seen until Harvard's response on Monday, was essentially
We're going to take over the university.
Yeah, and it was like, you're going to audit each individual professor about what they teach and what's in their syllabus. And I mean, it was ridiculous. And maybe they wanted this fight. President Garber of Harvard comes back in response after what many, including myself, viewed as a tepid response 2 weeks ago to the first salvo by the Trump administration, with a full-hearted defense of this institution and his institution, as well as universities more generally. I would say the mood on campus is game on. Everyone is in the arena with him. But it is the start. We have the tentacles that the federal government has into every university, but in particular Harvard University, are wide. I don't even know if all of them are known. This is going to impact individual students. It might impact pools of students, like international students. It's going to impact research. It's going to impact executive programs, and including the tax status of the university. This is Salvo 1, and there may be negotiations on some pieces of them, but this was a good way to start.
Two things.
The mood is really good.
One of the other, I'm glad you used the word finally, by the way, as Shirley Leung did in her column, because it's taken a while, but we did get to the right place. Two things, observations is one, I think this makes it a lot harder if Columbia had not capitulated, whatever it was, a month ago, and was thinking of capitulating last night, I think they would have thought twice after Harvard took a stand. I think it's going to trickle down, I hope.
Stanford University, my alma mater, is standing
MIT.
up.
They are? I didn't know that. Is that true?
Yeah,
but let me just say that.
And I saw Juliette Garber is a Stanford medical school guy.
I didn't know that. Yeah. Second thing is this tax-exempt status thing. I don't. First of all, it is total interference. It's not the president's decision.
Yeah.
It's the Internal Revenue Service. But obviously, everybody is obedient to him. But you're a better lawyer than I. There is no basis for him taking away. No. And I assume if they'd fight on the funding, they'd fight on this, and it just wouldn't happen.
It's just retribution, But I mean, I think the fact that the president himself came out with a tweet. I'm sorry, President Trump came out with a tweet the day after Alan Garber's letter. It just shows that he does take this personally. He is in this fight. This is not some generic, MAGA, thing. And it will be a long fight. I mean, I think what I liked about the letter was it, as you said, it gives an alternative vision of how an institution can respond. We don't all have to cower down and try to maneuver around the next 4 years. It's not going to happen. I think Columbia shows that. You can't maneuver around this. You either are going to accede to it or you are going to fight it. But the maneuvering, like if we just sort of put our head down and say, and say nothing, that's not going to work. And I think also it got, from just a tactical perspective, it got the president of the university, who really does represent higher education for the country, because we have the resources and the brand to make these statements, it gets him out of the tactics. This is what I was talking about last week. It gets him out of the tactics of, well, we're going to litigate this and not this. There's a line in the thing that says, basically my lawyers will be in touch. And that's exactly what it should be. You keep the university focused on what's our narrative? Why should people care about us?
Do you know who the lawyers are for Harvard?
It's conservative lawyers.
Not just conservative lawyers. That represented Paul Weiss, the law firm, in their negotiations pre-capitulation with the Trump administration. The other one is the guy who was the special counsel in the Biden case around the classified documents, who said, I'm not suggesting prosecution because he's an elderly man with a poor memory. Oh, I'm not criticizing them for doing it. I'm just saying that's what they're doing.
I think it's an interesting
and there may be areas where there can be negotiations, but this is going to be a multi-front, multi-year effort. And let's just say we started off well. The first letter that was sent out, as I said publicly, was like, what the heck was that? That was now in hindsight, it was buying time. But we're not going to buying into this administration, their definition of we're anti-Semitic. Please, stop hanging out with Elon Musk.
An anonymous texter says Joe Biden's at the Kennedy School today. Is that true?
Okay, that's so interesting. I got an email. Never before. I've been there for a decade. Never before have I gotten an email like this. No warning yesterday. I wake up this morning with a page-long email from security saying, basically, you can't get into your office. That's how I interpreted it. I'm going home after this. I'm going into my office later. And I was like, I've never gotten an email like this. And I thought it's either a sitting foreign controversial person like Zelensky, or it's Biden. So
we're doing Governor Patrick's class at 4:30 this afternoon.
You are?
Are we going to get in?
I don't know. Maybe we won't be able to go.
You better contact his person. You guys are coming to the Kennedy School?
We are.
Yeah,
4:30. Yeah.
Why did Joe Biden speak yesterday?
I don't know.
What was the point?
They missed the game. They missed the game.
Don't ruin my commentary, can you please?
Well, now you're going to be
That's
able
Jim's
to
commentary.
discuss Biden returning to the Kennedy School.
I guess I can. I don't plan to, but I will.
Do we know what time Biden's going to the Kennedy School? Maybe
I literally, after I read the first paragraph, I was like, I threw in the towel. It basically had me parachuting in. Like the only way I could access my office, because my office is above where they're closing
I'd like
it
to
off.
see that.
But and there's no public events from what I can tell. There's no forum. I think he's coming in for someone's study group and stuff. So, hey, look, you're in good company.
Yeah, okay, fine.
You guys are going in for class.
Okay,
he's going in for it's like the best.
In addition to Harvard fighting, a law firm I didn't know the name of, even though I know their work, Sussman Godfrey is fighting. And the reason we bring this, Sussman Godfrey, by the way, the reason we know their work, even if we don't know their name, is they represented Dominion Systems, and that was the thing that led to the $800 million settlement with Fox News.
For lying,
etc.
Repeatedly.
And the reason I bring this up is that Sussman is fighting, and so far, the judge has said, all this is from the Trump administration is a personal vendetta. It's illegal. The judge didn't use the word extortion, but that's what it is. It's extortion. So explain to me why, if Sussman Godfrey can fight and at least so far, we know what the end game is, win, why did X number of other firms to the tune of $950 million in free services to Trump's causes decide to capitulate? Why don't they do the exact same thing that Sussman Godfrey's doing?
I have no idea.
This
is my great analysis. I mean, they're winning. The law firms are winning every case, so you do have good evidence.
Those that are fighting,
those that are fighting.
Yep.
You do have good evidence. This judge said it was a shocking abuse of power. Just to step back, Donald Trump has chosen this law firm because they, as law firms do, represented Dominion.
Right.
That was going back. That was the election, the voting counting company that Fox went after to suggest that Donald Trump had actually won the 2020 election. Also, by the 2020 election.
Yeah.
And he is president of the United States, and he is still focused on a technology voting company from the 2020 election so that he can in some way rewrite history.
He said it on Air Force One the other night in his press availability. I won in 2020 too.
Yeah, I mean, he's there's something wrong. There is something wrong. No, but I want to talk about that because there is actually sort of just growing evidence that he's not remembering things, and I hope the media focuses on it. He didn't remember that he had lost 9-0 in the Supreme Court case about Garcia, who got sent to El Salvador. Anyway, they're winning in these cases. There's a division in terms of the law firms and how they're approaching it, and we don't know the details of the consents or the negotiations that the law firms have done. But if I were the law firms that are fighting it, I would send a letter out to all the clients of the law firms that have acquiesced and say, if you want someone to actually defend you, pick a law firm that's going to defend itself, right? Look, Paul Weiss will go down in history as the first, as the firm that could have done differently. This will not look good for Paul Weiss. I'm not even sure it will look good for their clients. I assume that there's monetary interest. Yeah, monetary interest behind it. But this is such an open and shut case that in terms of the victory that you can have against the White House, I'm surprised they weren't itching for it.
You know, when you read the stories about the partners making $20 million a year and the first-year associates making $220,000, you thought, really? It's kind of like Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah.
You could have squeezed by during the Trump term on maybe $5 million a year or maybe $10 million a year.
My understanding is the person negotiating for Paul Weiss has a take-home salary of about 18 to 20 million. And so to say that he's interested.
Oh, Carp, the guy who's the senior
that he has
PA.
an invested interest in making sure that the status quo is maintained is an understatement. Their economic interests are tied into being status quo. This is big law. And so good for big law, including Latham, right? Is that, no, yes, Wilmer, no. Who fought them?
Sussman Godfrey, the one
Yeah,
we're talking
Sussman
about
Godfrey,
today.
but the other big one.
Wilmer Hale, I think.
Perkins
Perkins
Coie, that was
Coie,
a
A
yeah.
lot
big
of them.
one.
That
And Hale
good for them.
in Boston.
Good for them.
Where Joseph Welch, a million years ago during the McCarthy hearings, was the guy who said to McCarthy, "At last have you no decency, sir."
No.
He was, when they used to call it Hale and Dorr, now it's William Hale, but they
Wilmer
fought.
Hale.
Wilmer Hale. Quite a few of them have
Yes.
fought. I wonder if Paul Weiss can change his mind.
I don't know what they agreed to. I mean, what is this $50 million in pro bono,
They're gonna-
agreeable
they're
pro
gonna
bono? Like,
defend
I
all the
don't-
coal
Can I
companies.
interrupt for 1 second? Boasberg,
Yeah,
the district
he
court
just
judge,
issued.
says probable cause to hold the Trump administration in contempt. This is just minutes ago.
Yeah.
We'll let you know, as we know more in a couple of seconds.
That would
we'll
be-
let you
that
know.
would be
Lawyers should go to jail.
For the administration.
Yeah, lawyers for the administration. That's fine.
But let's keep going and we'll get to this. Oh, you know what I want to talk to you about? You wrote about this for
Josh
the Atlantic.
Shapiro.
Oh my
Josh
God!
Shapiro.
Like it's like already like I was on CNN a bunch for it, and then like okay, now there's like 10 other headlines. But there was like an assassination attempt against a sitting governor and a probable candidate for president in 2028.
So tell us about it.
Yeah, so Josh Shapiro, as most people know, is the governor of Pennsylvania, very well known, was on the short list for Harris's VP pick, and a top Democrat, likely to run for president in 2028. He is also a very devout Jewish American, probably one of the highest ranking Jewish American politicians, maybe next to Schumer, in politics, in American politics today, and he represents the Jewish faith. It's a very important part of how he leads, as we know from some of the things he did a couple years ago related to the University of Pennsylvania. He was very involved with what was going on at the University of Pennsylvania and allegations of anti-Semitism. Whatever you think of, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, he went to bed after Passover with his 4 children were in the home. I think another family was in the home. This is a governor's mansion. I think Massachusetts remains one of only 2 states that does not give residency to their governor. It is secured by the state police. It is in a pretty sort of public area, and some man was able to get in at 2 a.m, throw a Molotov cocktail, go to the other, jump a fence at first, go to the other side of the mansion, get in with a hammer on a window, and then light a flame to another room. They got the Shapiro and his family out, but the pictures that everyone sees online are clear that this was a massive fire, and kind of scary, because these are like if you're like a librarian who gets threats, imagine looking at this and thinking they can't protect the governor of a state, they can't protect the president who has been the target of 2 assassination attempts. It's pretty scary stuff. I think my contribution.
He climbed some flagpole or something.
Or something to jump over the fence. My contribution.
Bottles filled with gasoline.
Yeah, I mean, this was planned.
Yeah.
We don't know his background. Donald Trump, we must say, waited close to a day and a half before commenting on it, and his comments were the ones that he should make, that this cannot happen, but then waxed eloquent about the guy's motives and sort of made a statement that the guy was no friend of Trump. He has no idea. We have no idea of the motives so far. And so what I wrote for The Atlantic is, we got to stop looking at political violence through the lens of what are the politics of the perpetrator, but actually who are they targeting? Even if he's just a crazy guy whose politics are sort of unknown or indecipherable, as was the case with the guy who shot Trump, we are in a position where these people are targets, and every attempt We've been so lucky that no one has been killed, but every attempt, including Paul Pelosi.
Well, a guy was killed in the audience in Butler, Pennsylvania.
Thank you for
not
reminding
a politician,
me. Thank you.
But
Yeah, but every attempt sort of lowers our standards of what is acceptable or not acceptable behavior, and it's kind of scary.
Here it is, breaking New York Times this second. Thank you, Jamie. The man charged with setting fire to the Pennsylvania governor's mansion staged the attack because he believed Governor Shapiro's stance on the war in Gaza was leading to the deaths of Palestinians.
Interesting.
According to a police search warrant made public on Wednesday. Let me also update people on this other breaking news where he said that Federal Judge Boasberg is saying there's probable cause to believe the Trump administration is in contempt. He says there's a willful disregard for his instructions, barring officials from sending planes under the authority of the wartime law called the Alien Enemies Act. The court does not reach such conclusions lightly or hastily. Remember, this is the case, this is before the Supreme Court ruling on that act, where they said, oops, they already took off.
Yeah.
Oops, they're out of our jurisdiction.
Yeah. Laughing.
They're on their way to El Salvador. We have nothing to do with it. He said none of their responses has been satisfactory.
Yeah.
We will see what he does.
And of course, I mean, look, part of the record is that Oval Office meeting earlier this week where President Trump is sitting with the president of El Salvador, and they're basically joking about having the wrong guy. Oh, I don't have the authority. Oh, I don't have the authority. I'm going to say one thing for the judge, which is, I don't know if we have proof of life anymore, because I'm trying to figure out why are they going to this why are they using this case where they've already admitted they made a mistake to push this constitutional moment, which it is. And Van Hollen, Senator Van Hollen is down there now.
Maryland Senator.
Part of it is do we know he's alive anymore? Because I'm looking at this as not from the legal front, but from the why are we behaving this way if he's a threat? You know, why is everyone acting like they're hands off? And I'm just saying it publicly, like I want proof of life.
Well, here is Press Secretary Carolyn Levitt. She's becoming one of my favorite people.
Why?
I'm
Joking.
sarcastic. Defending the deportation of Kumar Abrejo Garcia. This was during this press conference yesterday. Here she is.
There is never going to be a world in which this is an individual who's going to live a peaceful life in Maryland because he is a foreign terrorist and a MS-13 gang member. Not only have we confirmed that, President Bukele yesterday in the Oval Office confirmed that as well. So he went back to his home country where he will face consequences for his gang affiliation and his engagement in human trafficking. I'm not sure what is so difficult about this for everyone in the media to understand.
Well, what's so difficult is, as we said earlier, when that dope texted us before saying he's a terrorist, what's the problem?
I know.
Is that if he's a terrorist, I'm assuming that one person in the administration could provide some proof to the press
evidence
that he is a terrorist.
Yeah.
And the reason they don't, let me say it again, is because they don't have it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so obvious. It is painful.
She is making this up. I mean, they keep adding issues because they know they have it. Just to be clear, they have stated in court that it is the wrong guy. And a normal group of
They've
people,
admitted it. The Trump
normal group of people would call their best friend in El Salvador and say, "Can you get him on a plane?" They don't. They double down, and that's why I say, like, we need proof of life. If you're going to double down on this issue, why are you doubling down? Because you've already admitted that he's innocent. So hopefully Van Hollen can get proof of life that he is still alive. And this is, we all keep saying, like, we're at a constitutional moment. Like, we are in the middle of it. Judge Boasberg just is starting the process of the administration cannot be under orders to do something that the Constitution requires and basically give a middle finger from the Oval Office. And so if you were wondering how long it would take to get to the constitutional crisis, this is a lot of people, I don't know, like, we are there.
We're there.
We will see how they respond. But, a contempt order will mean that particular lawyers are going to have to either be fined or put behind bars. They could have. This is the other thing. They could have solved this so easily. We would have moved on. And the polling, at least so far, because they admitted that he is innocent, is not good for them. So they're just in their Stephen Miller world of we get to say who's bad, and then we send them to El Salvador, and we're next because apparently they're going to do it to Americans
It's like you can say someone's a terrorist, and then end of story. He's a terrorist. Send him to El Salvador. I mean, you have to.
This is. I mean, you guys have to understand. Is there? What are we not talking about? I mean, we're not talking about terrorists today. So this is a strategy by the White House that whenever they get into trouble on their incompetency on something else. Right. They are going to bring up the immigration thing. They are doing this. Not the lawyers are fine just being in a courtroom. They're the ones bringing the El Salvador president. Happens to be this week. Why is that? Because China is eating us alive.
Can I prove your point, if I may? During the noon news, and then I forgot to do this, for the very reason you stated, I wrote down what NPR's story were. One, the Trump administration is filing a lawsuit against Maine because of, I believe, the one trans athlete. I would argue even people who are troubled by trans athletes, that's not a major issue in the grand scheme of things. Pam Bondi saying Garcia's not coming back, and Trump reiterating we're going to send homegrown criminals to El Salvador. And the reason they did all three is exactly what you said, because they still can't figure out the stock market or tariffs or inflation or anything that people really care about.
It's all going to be about four guys and two transgender students, and you're going to base a country's relevancy in the world on that. I mean, it's such a petty way of looking at this country, and we're never going back. I mean, I hate to say it to everyone.
Can I say one more thing? We say this every day since the Supreme Court decision, but this is important because we're having this back and forth with texters and others saying, well, he's a member of a gang, whatever. None of it matters. None of it matters. The Supreme Court voted 9-0, with Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito included in the 9-0, saying the administration had to, quote, facilitate the release and return of Mr. Garcia from El Salvador. End of discussion. They spoke. End of discussion. So keep sending your stupid text to Marjorie saying that he's whatever he is. Whether he is or not, the Supreme Court said Trump had to do something which he refuses to do, which is a constitutional violation.
I just would like every reporter who's with Pam Bondi to ask,
where's the proof?
Is he alive?
Oh, is he alive?
Is he alive?
Do you know something that we don't know?
No. I just have been around long enough to wonder.
320 some people have died since 2022.
In that prison?
Not in that prison, but in El Salvador's tough prisons. That's a lot of people.
Because I'll tell you how I thought this week was going to unfold. I thought the El Salvador president was going to get off the plane with him. And then both men would look, oh, we are the strong men. We get to play around people's lives. And then he would be arrested in Maryland. I thought that was your image. That was the perfect image. We got the, and then honestly, everyone would forget about the other guys who are there. How many more? A dozen plus. So I thought that was it. So when that didn't happen,
that's a good point. We don't know if they're all gang members either.
So when that didn't happen, I was like, they seem awfully committed to this hiding. And so I, as an expert, I'm just raising a question. Can some reporter or someone give me proof of life of him?
Hopefully Senator Van Halen can find out.
We are
Good to
speaking
see
with
you,
National
Juliette.
Security expert. We were with, she's former Assistant Secretary
Good
of
luck,
Homeland Security
runners.
under President
Good
Barack
luck.
Obama.
He ran the New York Marathon twice.
Yes, he did. The Homeland Security program at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government, a contributing writer at The Atlantic. Thank you very much, Juliette. Great piece about Josh Shapiro, the fire there in The Atlantic that Juliette just wrote. After a quick break, we're going to talk about forgotten Italian recipes. Ooh, good. Something fun and uplifting with prolific cookbook author Christopher Kimball of Milk Street. He's going to debunk some Italian food myths and tell us about some kitchen tips, one of which I had to take seriously because I'm doing it all wrong. Listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Hungary has seen a steady erosion of its democracy and civil society.
We are not yet in Turkey because the journalists will be not jailed yet. We are not in Russia because nobody was falling out from the windows yet. but day by day we are getting closer.
I'm Elsa Chang. How some Western politicians are emulating Prime Minister Viktor Orban on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And the Massachusetts Office of Travel and Tourism, commemorating 250 years of history, independence, and innovation since the American Revolution. Learn more at massachusetts250.org. And the University of Massachusetts Amherst. United around a vision for public access to revolutionary education, UMass Amherst gives students the opportunity to seek solutions to the challenges of today. Learn more at
umass.edu.com/GH News, and thank God a break from the pain. We're joined now by a man who has more cookbooks than Julia Child and Lydia Bastianich combined. That'd be Christopher Kimball.
Well, I don't mean to criticize.
Okay, let me finish.
The beautiful pictures,
Founder of Christopher Kimball's Milk Street, host of Milk Street Radio, which airs Sundays at 3 o'clock right here on 89.7 GBH. He's here to discuss his latest terrific cookbook. I've made 3 recipes so far. Thank you very much. Milk Street, Backroads, Italy, cooking off the beaten path. Chris Kimball, it's great to see you. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
Our pleasure.
Yeah, we're thrilled to talk to you. So before we talk about your different recipes and what you brought and all the cooking.
You brought food.
I know.
Okay.
I'm very aware of that, Jim.
Okay, fine.
So what is your deal with Italy? I mean, is this something
What is my deal with Italy?
Yeah, what is your deal? I mean.
No tariffs. That's my deal.
They don't have
tariff-free.
Is it tariff-free? They don't
No,
even have
10%, but not above the 10%.
But it's not
above 10%.
But I mean, is it something like a lot of us think of when you comfort food, Italian food? People love Italian food. I mean, we even like bad Italian food. But I mean, is it something that you just? Why Italy? Why this cookbook?
Well, first of all, if you go to Italy, you find all these recipes that you didn't know existed. And you think by now, with all the food writers going to Italy over the last 100 years, we kind of would have discovered the bulk of what's there. We've discovered like 5% of what's there, which is really interesting. Because, like in Calabria in southern Italy, one town may have a recipe, but 20 miles away, they've never heard of it, right? So that's the first thing. Second thing is the ones you have heard of, like cacio e pepe, they do it very differently. Like a lot of people cook it in a skillet, and they cook the entire pasta in a skillet with water. And so a little bit like risotto almost. So what you think is an authentic Italian recipe if you go to Italy, a fettuccine alfredo was a pasta with butter and cheese you feed to kids when they had stomach aches. I don't know why they did that, but it makes no sense to me. But anyway, so what you think you know is wrong, and then what you don't know is huge. So that's why Italy.
So let me just say, I know you've been waiting for this, and I know with great trepidation. Jamie Bologna is our lead producer.
Right.
He spends a lot of time in Italy. His family's from Sicily. He pronounced
They're still there, a lot of them.
recipes this morning. You ready for this? Totally authentic. How's that make you feel, Chris Kimball?
So am I supposed to now say them the wrong way or something?
No,
is this a trap?
Can I tell you, I had a couple of experiences. I make spaghetti and meatballs pretty regularly. I made spaghetti and meatballs. I think you used the adjective the classic way. One, little tiny meatballs, which
polpette.
Is that what they're called, polpette? And secondly, I never heard of chitarra. I couldn't find chitarra. You're going to tell me how to find it in a minute. But I used bucatini instead of traditional spaghetti. And what I didn't realize, you're going to look at me like you didn't realize, you should have thought about it. Since bucatini has a hole in the pasta, the sauce emigrates totally into the thing. So the flavor is like exploding right in your... Stop laughing at me, Jamie. This totally explodes. I mean, that's what you intend...
He's not buying this.
That's what you attempted to do here, right? Is sort of...
Well, if you go to Italy, I was in Rome last summer, and the person I was with, Ariana Pasquini, she's very... Her family's all actors, so she's an extrovert. She goes, in Italy, pasta is about the pasta. That doesn't sound like a brilliant comment, but pasta's about the pasta. It's not about a ton of sauce. You have some sauce with the pasta, but it's about the pasta. And the second thing is you cook the pasta with the sauce to finish. You undercook your pasta, you put in a skillet, whatever, back in the pot with the sauce, and then the sauce marries to the pasta. So this whole idea of taking wet pasta and putting 3 cups of tomato sauce is no good.
Yeah.
But they don't use a lot of sauce. They use some sauce. But it's more about the pasta because pasta was cheap. You filled your stomach, it was cheap. And, even today in Calabria, it's, there's high unemployment and People make $1,200 a month if you're lucky. There's not a lot of money. So pasta's one way, among others, to fill your stomach, and it's about the pasta.
Before you tell us what you brought us and share with us, what you were kind enough to bring us, what are some other common, I don't know if myth is the right word, but things we think are traditional Italian meals that we often cook that are not even close? What?
But just what you just said is such a big deal.
What?
To people that, well, because you're not supposed to just make the pasta and pour the sauce on. That's what most of us do. We don't put it back in the skillet and cook it together. And, you're always wondering why you've got some too drippy sauce or something, even if you make your own sauce. You know what I mean?
They also care about the pasta. Some pasta is made with durum wheat, so it's very high protein. It's extruded with a bronze dye, which means it's got a very coarse exterior. That means that a lot of starch is released into the cooking water, and the cooking water is used to help bind the sauce to the pasta. So if you get an inexpensive, I won't mention brands, but it's very slick on the outside with a Teflon dye, there's not much starch, and the sauce isn't going to attach to the pasta. So it's about the pasta. Right?
Do they use hard pasta for the most part, or
hard wheat pasta? Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, durum wheat is about 4 or 5% of the total production in the world, and it's very high protein, and that's what they use. Yeah.
How about the question I was in the middle of asking?
Sorry,
no, it's
sorry.
okay. Is the skillet thing actually you pointed is a good example? I never did that before.
Neither did I.
Can I say something nice about you before we start for a second?
I'm going to be shocked.
Well, I know. I knew you are. I have to say, last night I made the asparagus and pancetta, fettuccine. It was spectacular, and not a lot of sauce. You're right, which changes everything, and you put it back in the skillet and whatever. Well, that wasn't a skillet; it was a pot, whatever. If I had to pick 2 cookbook authors who provide recipes that are the easiest to follow, that lead to the best results, I would mention a woman who was here yesterday, the day before, Joanne Chang.
Yeah.
Oh,
And you.
great.
I mean, it is amazing. I think people know my first experience cooking one of your things. I decided to alter the recipe because obviously you didn't know what you were talking about, and it didn't turn out so well.
How did that work out?
Didn't turn out so terribly well. But you deserve the compliment. Your recipes are really, you and your colleagues construct them in a way that are totally easy to follow and extraordinary. So how about my question?
May I say one more addendum to that?
What's that?
Well, because I think also for people that, and I've said this a million times, but I'm very intimidated. I don't do that well in the kitchen. But things like you put, like the thing about the chickpea flatbread, and you talked about how you should transfer the skillet from the skillet to the plate covered with a towel, so that it will have the right texture. I mean, those addendums afterwards, I think, make a huge difference. And you don't see that in a lot of cookbooks, those little tips.
Well, the addendums are basically don't screw it up.
Yeah, don't screw it up.
That's the don't screw it up
But
addendum.
most people don't tell you don't screw it up, or they don't tell you to don't drain both cans of beans, drain one can of beans, those kinds of things.
If you're developing a recipe, you got to think about how the typical kitchen. The problem is every oven is different.
Right.
So if you say bake for 40 minutes, that's useless because it might be 32 minutes, it might be 50 minutes. You got to think about what ingredients, like substitutions, people will substitute. So you got to think like, don't use this because this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
So you got to think about their knife skills. You got to think about what's actually going to happen. People take recipes, I always say, as sort of vague suggestions about how you might cook something if you had the time, the right equipment, and the right ingredients. Nobody has all that. So you got to think about what's going to happen to your darling little recipe once it goes out in the world, because, it's like sending your kids off after college. It's like, who knows?
Who knows? That's
I
right.
have 4 post-college kids.
4?
Who knows?
I have 6 total, but 4 post-college.
You have 6 children?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here to.
That's why he's doing so many cookbooks.
Oh my God!
I can't afford to stop working.
Okay, I'm going to ask my question for the 4th time. My question is, other than the spaghetti meatball experience I had, which was eye-opening, let me say, what are some of the myths that we have, those of us who think we're good Italian chefs in America in our houses, but it has no connection to how it's done in Italy?
Well, people think of tomato sauce, they think about The Godfather, right? And they put the pork chops in, and they put the sausages in. He's got a bottle of wine. He's doing this, and we cook it all day.
In your undershirt.
And if in your undershirt with a machine gun under the mattress. So that was a nice little visual.
Yeah,
it was. Very good.
Also,
we all
we're going to
remember
get
that.
sued, but go ahead. Keep going.
So in Italy, they make tomato sauce in 10 minutes. They have passata, which is tomato puree, usually in a glass jar. And they have 2 garlic. They have 2 cloves of garlic. They don't mince the garlic. They almost never do. They cook it in oil for about 2 minutes till it browns. They take the garlic out. They put the tomato in, cook it, add a little basil at the end, some salt. That's tomato sauce.
Why don't they mince garlic?
Aha!
Thank you.
Yes. Well, in Italy, you never get garlic breath because the garlic is subtle, and they usually cook with whole cloves or crushed cloves. Sometimes they don't even peel them. And it's just there to flavor the olive oil at the beginning of a recipe subtly. But you don't mince and put a ton of garlic on things because in Italy, you're supposed to have this balance. So it's not about garlic.
Okay, can you talk and serve at the same time?
Sure.
Okay, so a little for Marjorie, a little for me, and then you can tell us what we're eating.
Okay.
But all from your cookbook, I assume.
We
Obviously.
do have the chickpea flatbread. Mentioned. Yes, there we are.
Yep.
Great.
That's the one
And
you
if
have to cover with a towel when you're
You can
moving
use your
around.
hands. We're okay with that.
If,
Go ahead.
well, not for the onions.
Okay.
We have onions agrodolce, which I just discovered, but I came across in Calabria in Alto Monte. And they just take onions, red onions, with some vinegar and sugar and cook them for about 10 minutes, and they're phenomenal.
Can't wait.
Oh,
I mean, it's
love
super
onions.
simple, yeah. So those are really good. We have a focaccia we found in Bari, which is about 92% hydration. That means the weight of the water is 92% of the weight of the flour. Most breads are 55 to 70%, so it's super wet. The dough is so wet, they can't knead it. They actually pour it. They let it sit for a long time, 6 hours, and they pour it into the pans and cook it. So you get a really, really light crumb to it. It's really delicious. And then torta barazzi, which I had in a little restaurant outside of Bologna.
Oh, my God.
And torta barazzi is a flourless. They use peanuts and almonds they grind up. We use almond flour. It's sort of the original, flourless chocolate cake. So it's absolutely delicious.
Fabulous.
If I say so myself.
Thank
there
you
you go.
very much.
So, Marjorie, can
This
you give
is
us a
wonderful.
reaction while Chris Kimball is talking and feeding me, if you will?
Okay.
Are you doing, by the way, the last time you were here, you were talking, you're getting more into the cooking tour business. Is that fair?
Yeah, we started about a year ago. We have about 12 tours around the world.
And what happens when you go on one of these things?
Well, first of all, we've been there for our own show and others, so we know people there. We go out, we spend some time there. We work with Culinary Backstreets in London, who also have a lot of people around the world. And we design our own tour based on our own experience there. Or these are people who've worked with us or cooking school teachers. So you go to the islands of Venice and you go and cook in someone's home. It's really off the beaten track. It's not the usual suspects. Like if you do a culinary tour, they'll take you to a cooking school, right? Or a famous restaurant. But we really try to talk to people in their home so you get the real experience of cooking and eating with actual people on the ground.
Okay, can you hand that to me or what?
Yeah, stop talking,
God.
give me my food.
Thank you very much.
Where do you try the
That's
onions?
really why I'm here. Yes.
The focaccia and the onions. There's a little olive oil in the focaccia too, which makes it really
how
good.
Well, that's the other
onions.
That's the other thing in Italy. They do use a lot of olive oil. It's so interesting. People say, pine nuts, olive oil. Well, that's what they had. So of course they used olive oil. But if you finish the tomato sauce and pasta or any kind of pasta and put olive oil on at the end, including the olive oil you used to cook, then it's still fresh and aromatic. And that's why a lot of Italian pasta dishes are good.
But speaking of pan nuts, which obviously is my imitation of Best in Show, very poor imitation, you did a pesto recipe where there are no pine nuts and no Parmesan, is that right?
Well, there's one they make in Italy with parsley. It's just parsley, there are no nuts, there's no cheese, and it's very simple. So there's thousands of pestos. The Genovese, which we all know, the problem with Genovese is, it basically sucks. Because,
nicely put.
Well, it sucks
Very
because
good way to put it.
basil, if you go to the supermarket and you buy one of those containers, plastic containers, open it up and smell it, and you can't smell hardly anything, and then taste the leaf, and you don't taste anything. So basil here is like green leaves. They don't have much flavor. Parsley, Italian parsley actually has more flavor than most basil. Now, if you get great basil, it's phenomenal. But if you don't have great basil, you can't make it.
That chickpea thing is surreal. What is that thing called?
It's a flatbread from Piedmont. It's with chickpea
God.
flour, yeah.
It is truly amazing. We're talking to Christopher Kimball. His latest cookbook is Milk Street, Backroads, Italy. Let me ask a stupid question as we draw to a close here. I was looking the other day at the Joy of Cooking from, I think, my grandmother, or at least my mother, who couldn't cook at all, but she did have a cookbook. Not one picture in the cookbook, not one, a couple of drawings kind of thing. You obviously have an empire, and I'm sure there's nothing that's not done without forethought. Pictures are a huge, no, I meant that as a compliment, not as a criticism, but pictures are a huge entry point to a successful cookbook, are they not? I mean, we're both raving about the photographs.
Yeah, the photographs are
of
gorgeous.
just average people in Italy or beautiful food.
Well,
it really lights up the whole deal.
Yeah, this book, I mean, the reason it works in this book is we tried to get, well, we went to big cities too, but tried to get off the usual places, go to people's homes. So we're trying to show you what it's like to actually cook and eat. And
you get the feel. You do.
On a back road.
It does.
So here, the pictures make a big difference. But you're right. Back in the 19th century, early 20th century, all those big cookbooks, nobody had photos. They had little black and white photos occasionally. Fanny Farmer maybe had 30 pictures in the 1896 book, something like that. Yeah.
You know, what did you say about knives? I thought.
Oh, that interview you did.
Yeah,
That
the
was
interview
great.
you did, because I think a lot of people, including myself, are bad about this.
70% to 80% of home cooks in America have never sharpened their knives. I'm looking at all these people out here.
Yeah.
How many people have sharpened their knives in the last
Regularly.
year?
How many people sharpen their knives regularly?
Okay. Well,
Regularly.
That's not
Okay,
bad.
we got
That's
like
not bad.
6 hands out of 50 people. Okay, so that proves my point.
But it makes
Okay,
you.
fine.
Why does it make such a huge difference? The obvious
A
sharpener.
dull knife is incredibly unsafe to use because it'll slip off peppers or onions or whatever, and you're going to cut yourself. And number two, it'll make the prep. You're going to hate prep. So you're going to hate to cook. 90% of cooking is prep, right? It's doing the onions and the shallots and the celery, everything else. So some people use a serrated knife as a way to get around that. But you got to sharpen it, and you can buy a $30 sharpener, and it does, a pretty good job. But if it's not sharp, it's going to be unsafe, and it's going to take twice as much time.
How often do you sharpen?
You probably sharpen a little bit almost every time you use
Every
the knife.
time you use it.
A sharpening steel doesn't sharpen, it just tunes it up. But to really resharpen, I do about once a month.
Okay.
But-
Okay.
but
and
it's
the
worth
sharpening
time.
steel in between, maybe.
Sharpening steel just will tune up a knife, but once the edge curves over like this, then
Yep.
you got to take that edge off.
What would
Okay.
you say are the odds you're ever going to sharpen your knives? What would you
I
say?
have hope that I will improve.
Single
I'd say very
digit.
small. I'd say that's high. Let me say
Single
the
digit.
onions, as simple as they were,
They are
spectacular.
unbelievable.
We only have a minute or two left. Can you give us what's happening on TV and radio with you these days too?
I'm going to Japan in a couple of weeks.
Oh.
For 10 days. And
For TV?
Yeah, Japan's great and hard. It's hard because you have to translate those recipes to home cooks here. And you have to be very careful what translates and what doesn't. But the food's extraordinary and the quality of the ingredients is extraordinary. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'm going back to Paris. Tough job. But I think of all the cities in the world, Paris has more diversity of cuisines than India. London's good too, but Paris is amazing. So you can spend in one day, go to 4 different places. You can get, a Vietnamese place. You can get donuts. You can get Moroccan food. You can get old bistro classics. So that's a place I can go back to over and over. Rome's very different. Rome, the menus in Rome tend to be the same. If you want good Thai food in Rome, you're probably out of luck, at least most of the time. But it has great classics. But Paris is a place that just has everything.
So 2 very quick things. One, the focaccia is fabulous. Before you go in 30 seconds, that same producer who I was praising a minute ago, after having praised you, this morning when we were talking about great Italian food, mentioned a chicken parm, and I said that was really low rent. And he was offended. Am I right or is he right? Thank you. Okay. I think that answers the question. I think that is that a fair retelling of the conversation? Yes, it is. Thank you very much. Christopher Kimball, another great cookbook. It's fabulous.
Thank you.
It's great to
Thanks,
see you.
guys.
Yeah,
Thanks for the food.
and thank
Really
you for
appreciate
an
it.
incredible
Great to
lunch.
see
Wait
you.
till you try the flourless cake.
Did you
Jim.
try the focaccia yet, by the way?
Yes.
That is insane.
I love the extra olive oil, the whole thing. My gosh, I'm very lucky. We've been speaking with Christopher Kimball, founder of Christopher Kimball's Milk Street, host of Milk Street Radio, which you can hear Sundays at 3 o'clock right here on 89.7, and his latest book, and it is a fantastic one, Milk Street, Backroads Italy, Cooking Off the Beaten Path. Thank you so much for Christopher Kimball for coming in. Okay, after a quick break, 2 more things. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
It debuted as Say Brother in 1968.
When I'm coming through Boston, I watch Say Brother.
Became Basic Black in 1997.
Basic Black has always been there as a voice for our community.
And now, GBH News Rooted. The name has evolved, but the DNA of this show has stayed the same. It's about Black people, by Black people. I'm Paris Alston, host of GBH News Rooted. You can catch us Tuesday nights at 7:30 on GBH2 or watch on demand on the GBH News YouTube channel.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And Newport Mansions, presenting 11 historic properties and landscapes, including 7 National Historic Landmarks, tracing America's architectural development from the colonial era through the Gilded Age. Tickets at newportmansions.org. And Furniture Consignment Gallery, helping to power the circular economy for over 20 years. Now accepting high-end luxury furniture consignments in the greater Boston area. Learn more at furnitureconsignment.com.
Marjorie's dancing to this music.
Well,
It's insane. Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. I'm Marjorie Egan, Jim Browdy, live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. I have 2 things to say. The focaccia is insanely good.
Yeah.
And secondly, it's time for 2 more things. Marjorie, what's your thing?
Okay, a lot of people have heard about Bill Belichick's new girlfriend.
Great.
He, of course, is 72 years old, and she is a sprightly 24 years old. He's just gotten a job as head coach at University of North Carolina. Apparently, the girlfriend, her name is Ms. Jordan Hudson. She's involved now in the emails operation down there.
All emails, he said, have to go through her.
That's right. And this is according to the New York Times and Hayden Bird and Boston.com.
Yeah.
So she's very concerned, apparently, about making sure that the fact that Bill Belichick has hired both his sons to come with him is not dismissed as a nepotism thing. She points out that son Steve has learned coaching from the greatest defensive mind of all time. That, of course,
her boyfriend?
Would be Bill Belichick. That's right, her boyfriend, Bill Belichick. She said in one email, I believe being strategic about, the son's name is Steve. I believe being strategic about the depiction of the Steve will prevent controversy and show utmost respect towards Steve's
Show
career.
what respect?
Utmost. I think she spelled it wrong. Well, it's supposed to be utmost, but she spelled it wrong.
It's okay.
But the big thing is, in February, she reached out to the big guy there at North Carolina because she was complaining if there wasn't enough monitoring of the UNC football page for slanderous commentary, and that she wants them to delete the slanderous commentary and block users that are harassing Bill Belichick in the comments. And Belichick himself weighed in and said, I can't believe that UNC would support my being called a predator.
Wow.
He charged. Well, the people at the school said they'd taken steps to hide or block the comments. They couldn't actually find him being called a predator, but she thought apparently this was some reference to maybe their 50-year age span in their relationship. 48 years. Thank you very much. And people don't remember. We know her because she was dressed up as a mermaid on the beach there with Bill Belichick, and he was reeling her in. He was a fisherman reeling her in. Yep. And then she was doing those Cirque du Soleil acrobatics on the beach, balancing on Bill Belichick's feet. Do you think she should be on the emails?
I think it is of utmost importance that she be on the emails.
Okay.
Is that it?
That's it.
I'm going to talk about somebody who's about 9 years older. That would be former President Joe Biden. Yesterday, Biden reemerged in a speech in Chicago about Social Security. I wish he hadn't. Here's a little bit of what he had to say.
What do you think it does to that woman's living alone at 74 years checking, just not able to even find out whether she can't even find out?
Okay, by the way, the merits of what he said were perfectly fine. I say that he shouldn't have spoken as a fan of much of what Biden did as president, particularly his historic climate change response, his COVID response, and most importantly, his sincere showings of empathy for people who suffer in so many ways. Having said that, the last thing the 27% approved Democratic Party needs is to hear from an 80-something guy who is credibly accused of having covered up his declining faculties under the arrogant guise that only he could protect America from Donald Trump. Instead, many believe Biden gave America Donald Trump. Even worse, representatives of Biden suggest this is just the first of a series of public speeches. May that not be the case. History will judge Biden, in my opinion, far better than current times do. But in a country crying out for a new generation of leaders, honest leaders, Joe Biden should enjoy his post-presidency, not on a public stage, with a microphone. That's all I have to say about Joe Biden. And by the way, let me say again, I greatly admire the work he's done through his whole career, with the exception of Anita Hill and the end of his term, and that's it.
Okay, coming up after 1 o'clock news, Boston Globe business columnist Shirley Leung is here. She's going to talk about the impact of tariffs on small businesses, this child care disaster in Massachusetts. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
you can make a lasting impact on the station that has provided local news and conversation throughout the years by naming GBH in your estate plans. Be part of the legacy of public radio in New England. Learn more at wgbh.org/planning.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Direct Tire and Auto Service, offering a full range of services, including brakes, shocks, diagnostics, and AC work. Direct Tire and Auto Service. Not just service, customer service. DirectTire.com. And Bridgewater State University, helping create jobs for Massachusetts and working to connect industry leaders to graduates, elevating business in Boston and beyond. bridgew.edu/elevate.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, head on Hour 3 of Boston Public Radio, live from the Boston Public Library. In her latest piece out yesterday, Boston Globe business columnist Shirley Leung ponders whether and how Harvard University managed to grow a spine in the face of federal bullies. She'll discuss that, plus reaction to Jordan Furniture's CEO and spokesperson Elliot Tatelman stepping down. What is furniture without him?
I'm Marjorie Egan. In times of duress, few foods offer the constant comfort of Italian, as we learned earlier in the show from Chris Kimball. So we'll end the day with you opening the phone and text lines. What is it about pasta, meatballs, marinara, chicken parm, which Chin calls low rent, and he's Captain Gefilte Fish, Italian food, and you call or text Liliana on the third hour of Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Windsor Johnston. A federal judge in Washington, D.C. has ruled that there is probable cause to find the Trump administration in contempt for violating his order to immediately pause any deportation flights under the Alien Enemies Act. The administration invoked the act to target members of a Venezuelan prison gang that President Trump says are invading the United States. Senator Chris Van Hollen has arrived in El Salvador to push for the release of a Maryland man who was wrongfully deported last month. The Maryland Democrat says he'll continue to advocate for the release of Kilmar Abrego Garcia.
The goal of this mission is to let the Trump administration, to let the government of El Salvador know that we are going to keep fighting to bring Abrego Garcia home.
The Trump administration responded to Van Hollen's trip, calling Abrego Garcia a, quote, criminal immigrant who is already home. The Salvadoran citizen entered the United States illegally, but an immigration court later granted him protection from deportation to El Salvador. Abrego Garcia has been living in the U.S. legally and has no criminal record. President Trump has signed a new executive order aimed at reducing prescription drug prices. NPR's Cindy Lupkin reports the order has several parts.
The president signed an executive order instructing the administration to advance cost-cutting moves like increasing generic drug competition. The order also aims to improve Medicare drug price negotiation, which passed as part of the Inflation Reduction Act signed by President Biden in 2022. An official said he thinks the Trump administration can get more savings than the Biden administration. Because the number of drugs subject to negotiation increases each year, greater savings over time were baked into the law. The order also instructs the FDA to facilitate state programs to import lower-cost drugs from Canada. Sydney Lupkin, NPR News.
Hamas is rejecting a new Israeli ceasefire in Gaza. The proposal calls for disarming the militant group as a condition for ending the war. NPR's Daniel Estrin reports from Tel Aviv.
The new Israeli proposal is to pause the war in Gaza for a month and a half, free about half of Hamas's living Israeli hostages within the first week, and negotiate the disarmament of militant groups. A Hamas official tells NPR the group rejects the proposal. The official spoke on condition of anonymity because Hamas was still preparing a formal response to mediators, but in a statement, Hamas and other Palestinian groups said their weapons were for self-defense. They said the ceasefire proposal did not include guarantees to end the war and withdraw Israeli troops from Gaza. Israel's defense minister says Israel is changing tactics and won't withdraw troops from areas they capture in Gaza. Daniel Estrin, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
It's NPR.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Leaders in the Massachusetts House are unveiling their budget proposal for the coming fiscal year. The $62 billion plan would boost state spending by 6%. It includes elements from Governor Healey's spending plan released earlier this year, including a move to shift apartment broker fees off of prospective tenants. House Speaker Ron Mariano says the fees add an unfair cost for renters in an already expensive housing market.
As Massachusetts continues to face an affordable housing crisis, the House remains committed to doing everything that we can to ensure that folks can afford to live here, work here, and start a family.
The House budget proposal does not include Healey's push to add new taxes on candy sales and prescription drugs. The state Senate is expected to release its own spending plan next month. Researchers affiliated with Harvard University continue to receive stop work orders on contracts worth tens of millions of dollars. The orders come less than a day after the Trump administration announced a $2.2 billion pause of federally funded research. The Crimson reports that David Walt, a professor at Harvard Medical School and Brigham and Women's, who's been he's displayed as the face of the university's research accomplishments at harvard.edu, he received an immediate stop work order from a Health and Human Services grant supporting ALS, or Lou Gehrig's disease. Walt says that grant was worth about $300,000 per year. 48 degrees in Boston right now. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Capital One with the Capital One Saver Card. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. Details at CapitalOne.com. And the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation at macfound.org.
Welcome back to hour number 3 of Boston Public Radio. Shirley Leung is here. She's looking surprised because the new music, she hasn't heard it before.
Yes, no, I heard it earlier. It's like, is that new music?
Yeah.
Since when?
We had copyright problems.
I say music is a little strong for what we're playing.
It's several notes put together.
I'm having a hard time, but okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Okay, we are live from the Boston Public Library, and we are back here on Friday with live music and more. Not here next Tuesday because it's cleanup after the marathon, but on April 25th, we'll be joined by Maura Healey for another edition of Ask the Governor. Hello again, Jim.
Hey, Marjorie. So we're now joined by Shirley Leung, business columnist of the Boston Globe, host of the Say More podcast, and obviously a regular BPR contributor. Hello, Shirley.
Hi.
Hi.
So you wrote a great column about Harvard. You were rejoicing, that might be too strong a word, but you were happy that they grew a spine.
Yes. I mean, this is from Monday afternoon. Everybody's been wondering, what would Harvard do? Would Harvard stand up to Trump and defy his demands to really take control of Harvard's academic freedom? And luckily, the President Garber and the board of Harvard decided we are not going to surrender our rights. We are going to fight Trump. I think that was a really important moment, and we've talked about this on the show before. I mean, if the world's richest and most powerful university, if it caves to Trump, then all is lost, and so I'm glad that he stood up. Garber and the university stood up to Trump, said we were going to fight. And Juliette Kayyem, who's a professor who's on earlier, I mean, she also reminded all of us that this is not over. This is just the beginning of Harvard's fight with Trump. So we're hoping that they stay in the fight.
You're a Princeton kid, right?
I am.
We had Khalil Gibran Muhammad, who's got a Harvard connection, now is at Princeton, and sort of interestingly, the three of us were criticizing Alan Garber the other day for his silence, president of Harvard, at which point Jamie handed us the letter that had come out a minute earlier, right in the middle of the conversation, where he was strong. But Princeton, I don't know if I'm sure you heard the interview Gruber, is that his name?
Yes,
gave
Chris,
on the New York Times podcast.
Right, so he was on, I think, Thursday or Friday.
Great.
And as soon as I heard that, I think it may have been Thursday, I was thinking, well, I wonder I was thinking about actually doing a column saying this is what Harvard should do.
Well, don't you think a combination of that, the professors from the AAUP, hundreds of professors, faculty signing a letter, sort of put them in a box.
It did, and I think the corporation met over the weekend, too.
I didn't know know that,
And so I think that, right, you have Princeton coming out saying, I'm fighting, I want others to join us. Then I think Friday you had the Harvard professor suing over the Trump administration over threatening to take away $9 billion of federal funding. And then, right, you have hundreds of people in Cambridge on the Commons saying, Harvard, please stand up.
Sponsored by the city, which I am
Yes.
told, I live there, but I didn't know this. The first time I think ever the city has formally endorsed, or maybe recently has endorsed a rally, which is not, that's what I read actually in the Globe, I think. It's not insignificant.
I want to mention my alma mater, Stanford,
Yes.
which often beats Harvard and best colleges in America. I'd like to point that out.
Thank you.
And they're standing up too, so I'm very happy because the Trump administration wants to investigate Stanford's admissions policies.
I mean, we're hoping that this is contagious, right? That the universities, one by one, will speak up. And it was really important for Harvard to do what it did on Monday.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. That's it.
Let me just, I know this people are going to think it's petty, and so I apologize in advance. It's great that Garber finally, to use Shirley's word, put out this really powerful letter. But you know why Gruber has got in my opinion, has got as much play as he's gotten? Because we can hear him say what he said.
That's right.
It's
For a half
powerful
an hour.
to read about him
That's
in
right.
the newspaper. It is 1,000 times more
Right.
powerful to hear his voice saying that. And listen, I know they do what they allegedly for a reason. Instead of hiding out and issuing statements to the press and to your faculty, hold a press availability and speak. Let your face. This was the number one national story. It was the head of the Washington Post, head of the New York Times, head of all the news, head of the Drudge Report, right, left, middle. If Garber said the same thing, or maybe expands upon it and does it live as a human being, in my opinion, the impact of that is felt even more dramatically.
And when you heard the president of Princeton on with Michael Barbaro on the Daily, he wasn't some. He had a very kind of mild way about him.
Yes.
He was just laid out the facts. He wasn't some speech giver. It wasn't like he was, Donald Trump or something bellowing at people. So Garber, I would imagine, is not not necessarily a trainee. He's a physician, right? He's not necessarily, but you just lay out your case, and that's.
By the way,
what he
we
did.
believe it isn't 100% yet, but we're crossing our fingers. We have the president of Wesleyan on Tuesday,
I
who
hope
was
so.
one of the first presidents,
Yep.
Roth,
that's great.
who spoke out, and I think, I hope, emboldened some others to follow his lead. So we have talked tariffs nonstop. We stopped for 24 hours, but other than that, nonstop. You talk to a lot of small business people in the area. Is there a consensus, or what was the reaction?
I mean, there isn't a consensus. I mean, some small business owners, some startups, some investors, they're cutting their budgets. They're hunkering down. They're battening down the hatches. Others are taking a wait and see. Because I remember the first person we quoted in the story was the CEO of Vienna Snacks.
I saw that.
And they sell, chickpea snacks and other snacks.
In 15,000 stores
Across the country. Deals with Whole Foods, Walmart, Target. And she was telling me, listen, I don't want my staff glued to the TV news and making decisions, because she knows how Trump operates. One day he'll say the tariffs are on, and the next day he said they're off. And that's exactly what happened to her. What happened? I mean, literally between the time I interviewed her Monday and by the time the story ran Wednesday, he had put pause on these tariffs, many of them except for China. And so she's taking a wait-and-see approach. I mean, others in the restaurant industry, I interviewed this Vietnamese restaurant owner. He orders this, he has this giant prawn dish that he's very proud of. He gets them from Africa, and he's like, my chef said that prawn.
No more.
No more. It's going to be $30 on the menu. Nobody will pay for that. So I'm just taking it off. I'm just, doing something else. And same thing with the wine shop owner. Same thing. It's like, I'm going to, everyone loves this rosé. I'm going to go with a different kind of rosé, because people are not going to pay $22 for a glass of rosé.
But you did find that person from XL Dryer was happy.
Yes. Some people are very happy because
his parts are American, his products are American.
Exactly. So it's all over the map. But I think, you've probably said this a million times. I mean, business owners hate uncertainty, and that's what they're living in right now.
Speaking of the Daily, though, I did hear another Daily which interviewed a woman whose products are made in China, and she says if they keep these tariffs off, she's done, because she took out, all her money is tied up in her business, and 145% tariff. Forget it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping some resolution will happen. I mean, some people think that at the end of the day, Trump, wants the economy to thrive. The polls are saying that, people aren't happy with his handling of the economy. The stock market is down. So the hope is that maybe in a month he'll go back to, he'll find a deal.
But the problem is, though, that people that are totally dependent on China can't wait a month.
Well, I think that they're going to try to hold off.
Yeah.
They're going to try to hold off as much as they can. I think some of them have had contingency plans. Some of them are pre-ordered before, So I think people have been, Trump has been saying this long before he was sworn in, that he was going to raise tariffs.
Yeah, but no one thought they're going to be this extreme. And while a lot of the people you interviewed can at least try to wait, the story in the New York Times the other day that was so painful was about soybean farmers.
Oh, yeah.
The vast majority of whom are in red states, the vast majority of whom voted for Donald Trump, and the vast majority of whom sell their product to China and said it's over. And they can't wait. They can't store I don't know anything about it, but I know what I read. They can't store their soybeans for 30 or 60 or whatever the hell it is and hope that these insane 100+ tariffs come down. So again, the pain that is being caused people, we tend to discuss some of this economic stuff too analytically, but the pain that has caused a lot of small business people and individuals is just insane. And I hope, like a lot of these people do, that he comes to his senses soon. You should try, and I've done a lot of research on this because I didn't know anything about tariffs except the superficial. You really cannot find an economist who doesn't work for the Trump administration who thinks that this was smart policy.
Right.
Some may believe in tariffs, but not these kinds of tariffs done in this kind of way.
Right, not the execution.
Yeah.
I think a lot of economists will tell you, we could be better at dealing with our trade imbalance,
including with China, by the way. Yeah.
Right, but not. It needs to be in an orderly fashion. You need it with some certainty. And I've done stories where people are upset in that they don't. The worst thing is for Trump to do something for 6 months and then go back to the way it was. Have one plan for 6 months and flip-flopping. They can't handle that.
We're talking to Shirley Leung. Speaking of China, and all these experts say China was so isolated in so many ways, and all of a sudden countries that historically doesn't deal with Japan, South Korea, they're united on these things. Karen Miller, our former colleague here, wrote a great story in the Globe about, well, it's great, it's painful, about the danger that faces Kendall Square and Mass Biotech. And the punchline at the end is who's picking up the slack? China in huge quantities. What's going on?
Well, there's Kendall Square is synonymous with being this life science mecca, and just in the last 5 years, really in particular, there's been so much investment in life sciences in Boston, in Cambridge, and a lot of new jobs, a lot of new labs, but in the last couple of years, there's been a retrenchment. And now with the Trump administration taking aim at all these research grants, and a lot of these research grants, are kind of the seeds for life science ideas and innovation. And also Trump administration is going after graduate students, international graduate students. So the best and brightest no longer want to come to Cambridge. They're afraid that they're going to get arrested and deported. And so now some of these scientists are being courted to go, and entrepreneurs are to set up shop in China. And now China has been a threat to the American biotech industry for years. I mean, it used to be like, Boston and San Diego are fighting it out, and then Boston won, but then now it's Boston and China, Boston, Beijing. And so, but now the Chinese government, they just keep plowing more money and more resources to build up their life sciences.
You said there was
industry.
retrenchment pre-Trump. Why was there retrenchment?
Well, no, there was a lot of, there was just too much money pouring in. Remember after the pandemic, there was a lot of investment. Healthcare was hot, so there was a lot of money going into life sciences. And remember the building boom was basically life sciences labs, but now there's too many labs. So there's a glut now. And so it has slowed down. Do I think this is the end of life sciences in Kendall Square? No. I think Kara's store was trying to say, did we already hit the peak? is this as good as it gets? And from here on out, is it just going to be China?
Well, the scariest graph in her story to me was when she said the United States can't afford to lose its biopharma industry because we've already lost to China telecommunications, semiconductors, television, solar panels, and chemicals. So that was really disheartening.
Right, and so now I guess we have been losing that battle. So now we have what's left is life sciences and also our innovation.
Now, where is the light at the end of the tunnel here?
What?
I feel like it's like almost all just bad news.
Well, you know that old line, it's an oncoming train, is the
I mean,
old story.
where is the
on
upside
what?
here?
Where's the light on what tunnel?
Well, we're really in a mess on,
Well, hopefully Trump can only serve four more years.
Okay, Shirley said that. We don't take a position on that, of course. So, Shirley, we talked to Michael Curry about mental health funding in the state, even though I think it's fair to say for once that Beacon Hill does care about it a lot. Funding not keeping up with demand. Another thing which Beacon Hill has shown, despite our often criticism, that they care about is child care, but the same problem here. The demand is far outstripping the funding, even though funding in some parts of this is going up, right?
Yeah, this is a great story by my colleague Katie Johnston for part of our Money, Power, and Equality team. And I was surprised at this. I didn't know that the state had really gone above and beyond in terms of pouring more money into child care, vouchers and the whole system to create more kind of what they call seats in the system, or so child care centers can take on more kids, but it's not enough, I mean, the state has been underwriting far more financial system, the most it ever has done, and it's still not enough. And I guess because families are struggling, low-income families are really struggling.
32,000 children on the waiting list.
You know what I think? I'm interested to hear from Maura Healey when she's with us on the 25th. We've discussed with her a lot. And she always has the same answer. I don't mean that critically. I mean, she is consistent. When we talk about considering the shortfall of funding for things she believes in, do you regret having done the $1 billion tax break? And she answers immediately and says, no, it helps with affordability. She did expand dramatically the child tax credit, the dependent care credit, but including children, not only raised the amount per kid, for those of you who filed your taxes yesterday, but also took off the cap. It used to be only 2 kids you could get the credit for. Now, if you have 10 kids, you can get a credit for 10 kids. But the question is, I don't know enough to know the answer to this. Which is a better way to help parents who are in trouble?
Right.
Funding childcare or giving them a multi-$100 tax credit for kids? What's more efficient spending of government money? And I don't know the answer to the question, but obviously
I think you got to start the public schools when kids are 2.
With what? You mean
with what
pre-K
money?
kind of things,
With what? But that's still,
I don't know.
That still needs money.
And I think especially if you're a single mother, and there's a lot of them, you're just, forget it.
You know what's incredible about Katie's story, though, about the vicious circle thing, is she talks about child care centers, small, in homes and things like that, and mentions there's also a shortage of staffing. And the shortage of staffing is not because they can't find people. Well, that is because they can't find people because those are people who are on waiting lists to get subsidies for their own kids to go to be in childcare, so they can provide childcare to others. So it's really
every other country manages to do this, Shirley, except us.
Every other country.
That's true. That is true.
By the way,
we don't want to do it, I think, is the bottom line.
Can I say, I said it was tentative before. This is actually really good news, and congratulations to our staff for booking people who are not easy to book. On Tuesday, we have Michael Roth, who's the president of Wesleyan, who was one of the first people in the country to stand up to this crap. And on Thursday, we have Danielle Holly, who's the president of Mount Holyoke, who is also one of the first people.
Yep.
So Tuesday and Thursday, 2 of the very few college presidents who have had the courage to
And the following
do
week
the
you'll
right
have
thing.
Garber, Dr. Garber from Harvard.
We're going to try, and we're inviting. We really would love to talk to him, and hopefully someday he'll decide to do that.
So everybody knows Jordan's Furniture. It's been around here for decades and decades and decades. People may have bought mattresses there, they may have bought couches there, they may have gone to watch the Christmas display, the MOM, the moving, whatever you call it down there. Well, Elliot of Barry's been gone for a while, but Elliot is retiring now.
He left the company.
He left the company
Okay.
to go fund Broadway shows.
I didn't know that either.
I did know that.
kids
And a
show
PBS
here at
thing,
PBS.
yeah.
But anyway, to get everybody in the mood, talking about Jordan's furniture and Elliot's departure, here is a 1996 Jordan's Furniture commercial featuring a woman calling into Jordan's hotline requesting help on picking the best mattress savings. And here are Elliot and Barry.
Jordan's Furniture, this is Elliot. And Barry.
Boys, I really need some info.
Okay.
Sure. I mean, I keep seeing all these outrageous mattress sales. How do I know who to believe?
At Jordan's Furniture,
I know, you don't have bogus sales and inflated prices. You have true savings and underprices.
That's right. And
you sell more mattresses per square foot in the USA than anybody.
Anybody.
And I should come to any Jordan's Furniture for a mattress.
Well, yeah.
You know, you guys really don't talk as much as people say you do.
You know that woman sounds like? Marjorie Clapper.
It does sound like
I wonder
Marjorie
if it was
Clapper.
Marjorie
And you know
Clapper.
what I read in this story by one of your colleagues at Boston.com? That when you buy a sofa from them, they give you free popcorn, soda, and wash the windows on your car.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's what the Boston Globe is reporting, Shirley.
So why is he leaving?
He's 79.
Well,
I didn't realize
Donald Trump is 79 in June.
It says his wife just passed away.
His wife's passed away.
I
in
didn't
May.
know.
Realized how short life is and wants to do
Exactly.
something besides sell sofas and mattresses.
And his kids, his two sons, are going to be running the
But
company
he doesn't
together.
own the company anymore, does he?
No, I think right. It's Warren Buffett. I think Warren Buffett owns it.
Yeah.
So, but
they run it. They're
right,
CEOs.
but Buffett bought Jordan's long ago, but he's let Elliot run it, and now Elliot is passing it on to his kids, and I don't think his sons. They said they're not going to be in the commercials like like Elliot and Barry, but yeah, no, it's a really end of an era. And the other thing that Jordan's and when I think of the Elliot era, he had those great Red Sox the Red Sox
A friend of
contest.
mine got a whole apartment of furniture free.
Right.
Well, to explain what it had.
Right.
What you had
So
to do.
at the beginning of the season, I forgot which year was it? 2007. Well, he's done it multiple times, and saying like if like a Red Sox, if you had to hit.
The Red Sox swept, not only won the World Series, but swept the World Series. You get all furniture you buy by a date certain, free.
For
and
free.
Partially insured, so it wasn't all their money.
But that's what happened. The Red Sox swept, and they had to, like millions and millions of dollars of free furniture, and it was a great promotion for them, you know. And so, but yeah, I've run into Elliot at often on opening day of the Red Sox, and so, but he'll be missed, and so, but he joins like a long line of kind of well-known business guys who have retiring, like or getting out, like Herb Chambers, the author.
Well, another person who retired from one company, but now is another one was synonymous with is Roger Berkowitz.
That's right.
Who now is
That's
Roger's Fish Company.
Right.
But did anybody think legal seafood without listening to the voice? The very distinctive voice of Roger Berkowitz.
That's right. But he's still in the fish business.
Oh, he's doing great. Roger's Fish Company. You should check it out. It's terrific. By the way, can I just say, it was Marjorie Clapper.
It was Marjorie.
And by the way, for those who don't know, of a certain age, Marjorie Clapper was not only a wonderful politician, state rep, ran for governor. I'm going to tell that story in a second. Lieutenant governor with John Silver in 1990, but also just a spectacular, smart entrepreneur and person with her husband. One of the great headlines in this is a story I think written by Marjorie Egan. Marjorie Clapper, when you would go to the State House and the House, 159 of the 160 reps would be dressed in black. And you'd see one woman in high heels, 3-inch high, red shoes, red suit, huge shock of blonde hair, and a wonderful, huge personality. It was Marjorie Clapper. So John Silver, who was like not exactly that kind of person.
Very staid
and harsh. He ran for governor in 1990. Marjorie Clapper was his lieutenant governor candidate. And the headline in the...
It wasn't the headline, it was the lead.
In your story
was story.
Dr. Doom and va 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 voom.
Oh, that's really good, Marjorie. That's excellent.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
she's
really
a great
something.
person. And she is a great.
I can't
she's
imagine
still around
them
and
together.
great.
Can you even imagine?
I can't imagine those two together.
He was a scary guy, John Silver. He used to do all this great Silver shockers.
She was BU president, yeah.
He was a BU president, too, so I can't imagine those two together.
He said things when you're ripe, it's time to go.
Oh, wow.
Now, by the way, that's a Trumpian kind of thing, except Silver had a brain.
He had a brain.
Before you go, while Tatelman is retiring, another person who's not retiring but changing jobs, we only have a minute. I want to mention, at your recommendation and some others, we had Yvonne Howe on, Secretary of Economic Affairs.
Yeah.
We don't often say this. One of the best guests we've ever had.
Terrific.
She was like on fire and really substantive and smart. And she's leaving the Healey administration.
Yeah, she's the economic secretary for the state. I love the quote in our piece from Governor Healey, who called her the Energizer Bunny.
Oh, yeah, that's really good.
Which is very perfect.
She was incredible.
And so, but yeah, she's crisscrossed the town. She helped quarterback, a $4 billion, economic development bill. And so, I mean, she's leaving to spend more time with her teenage daughters, and it sounds like her mother is an aging mother in California.
But she's not old, so obviously she's going to do a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, she doesn't have another job lined up. She's going to, take care of family first.
And she's got kids in California too.
No. Her mother's in California. Her kids are here. And so, but she came. She probably brought those
the
wristbands, Team Massachusetts.
She brought them, hundreds of them.
So, but she leaves at a time when, there's a lot of uncertainty in the economy right now between a lot of research funding going away, and so I'm hoping that Governor Healey can keep the economy on track.
Well, and I hope she stays involved. Yvonne does.
Well, those teen kids, pretty soon you're going to have 2 teen kids.
I have one teen kid already.
Well, we're looking forward to the stories, Shirley.
We've already gotten the stories, actually. Hey, Shirley Leung, it's great to see you, as always.
Thank you, Shirley.
Take care.
We've been speaking with Boston Globe business columnist Shirley Leung, host of the Say More podcast, which you can get wherever your podcast. Shirley's also a BPR contributor. Coming up after a quick break, we're opening the lines to continue our earlier conversation about Italian food. Spaghetti and meatballs, chicken parm, the ultimate comfort food, for some anyway. Is Italian the undisputed king of Boston cuisine and the undisputed king of comfort food? We'll ask you next. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Hungary has seen a steady erosion of its democracy and civil society.
We are not yet in Turkey because the journalists will be not jailed yet. We are not in Russia because nobody was falling out from the windows yet. But day by day, we are getting closer.
I'm Elsa Chang. How some Western politicians are emulating Prime Minister Viktor Orban on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Mass General Brigham Health Plan, ranked #1 in member satisfaction among commercial health plans in Massachusetts by J.D. Power for the 2nd consecutive year. Details at mgbhp.org/everyday. And Gentle Giant Moving and Storage Company, employing athletes since 1980 and currently hiring to join their team. Gentle Giant is an equal opportunity employer. More at gentlegiant.com/careers.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Mark Regan, Jim Browdy, live from the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're back here Friday, not Tuesday, because as we've said, they're cleaning up from the marathon, that sort of thing. Today in the Globe, sort of perfect to have Chris Kimball here with his book, Milk Street, Backroads, Italy. Deborah First in the Globe today writes, Boston loves its Italian food, so much so that when restaurateurs try and branch out, meaning beyond it, they find a lack of appetite, let's say. Why, Deborah asks, in a city already chock full of pasta and pizza, do Bostonians never tire of Italian food? Is it the ultimate comfort food aspect of chicken parm, Jamie? The ease of sharing pizza, the allure of the North End, memories of Prince Spaghetti on Wednesdays. The lines are open at 877-301-8970. We want to hear from you about your favorite cuisine. Are you Parmesan, pastaed, and pizzaed out, or can you not get enough of? Exactly. So if it's not Italian, what do you turn to for local comfort cuisine? Is it Mexican? Is it Asian? What is it that really does it for you? And as always, don't just tell us what does it, but why that particular food is really important. Do you have one or you don't?
Oh, Italian.
It is Italian?
Absolutely.
Why?
I think because I grew up on it. You know, we used to go to the Columbus Cafe on Friday nights and get spaghetti and meatballs.
Columbus Cafe? What was that?
It was a Italian bar.
I thought you went to that other place that I'm not allowed to criticize. What's that called?
Magoni's.
You didn't go there?
That was not where we went every Friday night. We went
why
to the
not?
Columbus Cafe because it was closer to us and they did good takeout and I really loved it. We really loved it. Spaghetti and meatballs every Friday night was great.
So is Italian the thing? Is that what it is for people?
I don't know. My former mother-in-law used to make great. She wasn't a great cook, but she made
Italian.
great Italian. Yeah, make great meatballs, great sausage, great red sauce. I don't know, something about Italian food. How about you?
I would have to say Asian is my sort of go-to, including Indian too, which is a variation.
Which dish?
Well, I can't say what dish. I'm not like you. I'm a sort of a connoisseur of a broad spectrum of dishes.
Okay.
It isn't like I had.
And is that because you had Asian food as a kid in Philadelphia?
No, Asian food when I was growing up, because there were almost no Chinese restaurants, by the way. And I don't just mean Chinese food, but there was no Asian restaurant. The only Asian restaurant maybe was a Chinese restaurant. Was like Americanized, almost out of a can. Kind of crap.
Yeah,
I mean,
but you didn't know
the
it.
Chinese food explosion happened with Joyce Chen and people like that, at the end of the last century, and then all of a sudden it became huge.
Well, I think that's true. But
and Sally, I'll think of her last. Is it?
I don't know.
Leung? Is it her daughter was on Dumpling Daughter, and she was on with her mother.
Okay.
And she was another one of the founders. So we want to know what's the food that really does for. And I would argue it's more important now to make this decision because, as we say, was it music we're talking about the other day? It was. In a stressful time, there are a lot of things that matter more than they ordinarily would matter. And while food always matters, I would argue a comfort food, which comfort food is too cheap a meaning for me, but you know what I mean. Comfort food really matters more now than almost ever, don't you think?
I think at this particular juncture, yes, a lot of people are
Sally
looking for
Leung
comfort.
is her name, yes.
Sally Leung, okay.
877-301-8970. And by the way, liverwurst is not an ethnic food, Jamie. Thank you for typing it in.
Gefilte fish is, though.
Yeah, I love gefilte fish.
I know you do.
I love Jewish food, too. Do you like Jewish food?
I don't like gefilte fish.
Well, it's gefilte. It's not gefilte. You've been saying gefilte for 25 years. It's gefilte.
I like the bagels at Mama the matzo ball soup.
That's really good. Matzo ball soup's great, isn't it?
Yes, matzo ball soup is great.
Okay, 877-301-8970 is the number. Let's go to, we just got a note from a friend of yours, we can't say who she is, I don't think, who says that you make a mean chicken parm. Is that true? I was disparaging chicken parm before. Is that true?
You'll never know.
Well, I didn't disparage
Jamie just said you'll
you
never
can bring
know.
some for me.
Well,
I'd be happy to have.
That is really cutting.
Yeah.
Let's go to Jim in a car. You are first on Boston Public Radio. Welcome, Jim. Hi.
Hi, I'm so glad I'm first.
You are?
I have called before and twice in one day.
You
Wow.
did? We're not allowed to do that. We'll make an exception. Go ahead, Jim.
Yes, but not 2 days. Here's what I'd like to say.
Oh.
Is that you call it comfort food because the person who's making it is putting love into it. If you ever ask a person who's cooking Italian food, they're going to say the number one ingredient, and in my meatballs especially, is love.
That is a beautiful, beautiful phone call. Is Italian your go-to? Is that your go-to food of choice there, Jim?
I'm from Everett.
Okay.
Good. Okay. Thank you, Jim. Call us again soon. We really appreciate your call. 877-301-8970. What's the first non-American food? I didn't even think of this till you asked me about Asian food. What was the first non-American food you had? When we were growing up, there were not all these different nationality restaurants.
Well,
there was like a cheeseburger.
We had Chinese restaurants.
You did?
China Pearl. Yeah, they had poo-poo platter. That's what you had at the China Pearl, poo-poo platter. Then we got chow mein a lot, from
chow mein. It's
chow
not,
mein.
I mean, really.
Well, it was Americanized. It wasn't real.
Right, exactly.
It wasn't real Chinese. But what did I know? I was like 10 years old.
And did you like it?
I thought it was great.
What other ethnic food did your nationalities do?
Portuguese food, chorizo
yeah,
linguiça.
well, that's great.
We had a lot of chorizo linguiça, like a linguiça sub, chorizo sub, linguiça pizza, chorizo pizza. Yeah, all that was great.
You're not a very adventurous eater, but you sound like you are.
Well, I mean, the things you have as a kid often stay with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And being in a
What was your
Portuguese
favorite dish at Magoni's, would you say? No, I'm serious. What was it?
I don't know. I didn't go to Magoni's that much.
Why?
Because it was further away from my house. It was not in Fall River. It was across the river in Somerset. But I will say they're rebuilding Magoni's, and they're going to have a roof deck. So I'm very excited about it. Yes.
Are there can openers on every table on the roof deck? Or
Keto on every table.
Keto.
Maria from Marblehead, thank you for
Hello,
calling.
Maria from Marblehead.
Hi, everybody. How you doing?
I think I'm good. And Marjorie is too.
Good.
Thank you.
I wanted to weigh in about the whole Italian.
Please.
And I married Irish boy.
Hey, Maria, we got to put you on hold because we're losing you. And
I
we're
just
going to
called,
take one other call.
I
and come
called China Pearl the wrong name.
Okay,
it's China
fine.
Royal.
As I was saying to Maria.
Thank you, Marjorie.
Thank you, Maria. Maria, we're going to get back to you in a second after the next call. Maybe you'll move a little bit. We'll have a better connection. What did you just say?
I called it China Pearl. It's not China Pearl. It's China Royal. I had the name wrong. And Marjorie from
How do you know that?
Because Marjorie from Little Compton just corrected me.
That's incredible.
Here's one. Southern food is my comfort. A slice of pecan pie after some fried chicken with gravy. And then, of course, biscuits on the side.
Did I tell you who made fried chicken for the first time the other
You
night?
did.
And do you know where I got the recipe? His magazine.
Is that right?
Chris Kimball's magazine. And it was spectacular.
Oh, Kelly from Rhode Island. It's her birthday. She's here from the front row.
Where are you,
Where's
Kelly?
Kelly?
Hey, happy birthday.
Happy
Is that your birthday?
Happy birthday. Some friend of yours
Wow.
has told us. Maybe you guys told us. Somebody told us. Memphis French toast is another one. French toast stuffed with peanut butter and bananas.
That's disgusting.
I think that sounds pretty good.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, fine. Wait a second. Is that
Mexican.
true, too? It's Hannah's birthday today, too? Why isn't she telling us?
birthday.
Hannah's our coach. Do you know you have the same birthday as Hannah? Do you know that? I know. Who's Hannah? We don't know either. She works with us. Hannah, happy birthday. We're thrilled. Let's go. We are thrilled, actually. It's your birthday. I hope you have a great time.
Kevin in Brookline, thank you for calling.
Hey, Kevin. Oh, Kevin, how are you?
Good. And I'm so happy that because in these times that we're living in, comfort food, boy, do we need it.
Exactly. Boy, do we need it.
Italian food, Italian food, sure, Boston's known. But how can you not talk about the roast beef sandwich? The North Shore staple.
Well, roast beef sandwich. Is a roast beef sandwich like this a Boston area oddity?
Is that Kelly's?
I don't think when I lived in New York City we had roast beef sandwiches like that.
You're not finding that type of sandwich anywhere, but they look at you like you're crazy when you talk about the onion roll.
Oh, Kevin, we're losing you too.
Oh.
Kevin, before we totally lose you, what's your place of choice? You can name names. We're not.
Just because it's old school.
Kevin, we're going to put you on hold, and if you could tell one of our producers the place you love most because the connection's horrible, we'll say it on air. That was Kevin from Brookline. By the way, that's not exactly fitting our definition of topic, but in terms of comfort food, you don't eat a lot of meat. Do you not love a nice, thinly sliced? You're making a face? No?
No,
you don't
Kelly,
like fish.
Kelly's
you don't like roast beef. What do you like?
I'm not a big. I like a lot of things.
Like what?
I like carbohydrates. I like bread.
You like
I
bread?
like pasta.
Bread.
I like the flourless chocolate cake we just
Was
got
really good,
from
yeah.
Christopher Kimball and the focaccia that he just brought. Yeah, I like eggs, peanut butter.
Okay, fine.
When I go home to Mexico, I could eat tacos on variations every day. But my go-to treat here that brings happiness is Thai food. I judge them by their lam gai. And add a massaman curry, and it's like a special treat.
Massaman
When I
curry, yeah.
first had Thai 27 years ago. Laos Thai Kitchen in Lowell is amazing, says Bill from Templeton.
You don't eat Mexican food either, obviously.
I like Mexican food.
You like rice and beans, right?
I love rice
That's
and
the core
beans.
kind of thing.
Yep, love rice
How
and
about
beans.
the more exotic Mexican food? No, you're not doing that.
Like what?
I don't know. Let's go to Maria and Marblehead. We're going to give you one more try. Hi.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for taking my call.
Okay.
So I just wanted to mention I can't stand Italian food, and I'm Italian American.
Oh no! How come?
I know. I grew up eating it all the time. My mother cooked it all the time. Meatballs, the whole deal.
Yeah.
And fast forward, I married a nice Italian guy, and he wanted me to cook it. And I said sure, and I did for 20 years, and then I got divorced, and now I don't cook it anymore.
Good for you. So what is it? What do you do, and what do you like?
I love Middle Eastern food, especially Lebanese
Yes,
food,
so
and
do
I love
I,
Chinese dim sum.
Dim sum is pretty good.
Middle East food
Yeah.
we should have mentioned too.
Chinatown.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Well, you know who has, and also Medford, there are a lot of Quincy, a lot of Shirley. Maria, thanks for your call. I'm glad you stuck around. You wrote a terrific analysis of, I think, the 12 best dim sum places in Greater Boston.
Who?
Shirley Leung.
Oh, she did?
She did, yeah.
Oh.
With one of the food writers at the Globe, and she went and she gave great reviews, and I went to a bunch of them, and they were excellent reviews.
Now, here's one. Growing up Jewish in Newton, we considered Chinese food Jewish food. South Pacific restaurant is the best, says the texter.
Well, can I generalize? Jews really like Asian food. Why is that?
I don't know.
Okay, good. Let's go to I don't know either.
I don't know.
Can you
but
look
that's
that
like
up?
the joke. On
Sure,
Christmas
why not?
night, all the Chinese restaurants are full of Jewish people.
Well, unless you celebrate Christmas, which one Jewish person
That's right.
does.
You're a half and half, Jim.
I am sort of. Katie in Rockport, welcome to the show. Hi, Katie. What's going on?
Hi. I wanted to tell you about a raw vegan restaurant.
A what restaurant?
Raw vegan.
Raw
vegan. Well, I won't be going there, but let's hear what you have to. I honor your preference. Raw vegan.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You know, when you eat something cooked like with the highest, freshest, highest quality food, freshest.
Yeah.
That and beautifully prepared with let's just say lemon juice, and it's just so it makes me enjoy it more because of the feeling of eating healthy.
Oh, I can understand that.
Okay.
So what's your favorite dinner? Like a carrot? What do you eat?
No, come on.
I'm serious. No, what do you eat? What's going?
Like,
yeah.
Well, they make pasta noodles out of like zucchini and then a sauce from raw cashews that are soaked and then ground up and made into like a sauce. Just
Okay,
that
let
and
me
stuff
ask you
with some
something.
garlic.
Now, and I mean this in the nicest way. Do you do it because you like the taste of it, or you do it because you care about health and the environment? What's the motivator?
It's a beautiful intersection of both. That's the thing that I try to.
That's great.
I'm trying to explain is that food tastes better when it's healthy to me, and I feel. You know how you feel after you eat something you regret, and you feel kind of logy and.
Yeah, I have that experience like 10 times a day.
Like a big cheeseburger.
Yeah. What about it?
You want to, you, and then when you regret eating it afterwards, it's like, I wonder why I would do that over and over again. And then so I don't ever regret. I feel energized really
You do.
from it.
You sound it.
And then no, I know I haven't had any raw vegan food for a long time.
You haven't.
And I
Neither
wouldn't believe what I ate. I ate Indian food this morning. But
Wait, I thought you called in to say you love raw vegan food. What happened to that?
I do.
So
You did?
why haven't you eaten it? Why haven't you eaten
Huh?
it for a long
What
time then,
happened?
Katie?
It wasn't sitting in my kitchen this morning.
Oh, okay. I got it.
Okay.
Okay, well,
All
Katie,
right.
that was an excellent call. Thank you very much. Now, this is an interesting thing when she said how you feel when you're done. Here's Pat and Dedham. While I love Giacomo's veal marsala, Italian food is far from comfort food. I feel uncomfortably full after every Italian meal I eat. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I think that may be true if you eat like a heavy lasagna or heavy Italian, but I just think of it as like comfort food to me is kind of filling food. I mean, I could not get off on the raw vegan food. I don't think that would be a thing for me. No. I like things, and I'm not.
What do you think of the lasagna at Standard Italian?
I thought it was unbelievable.
One of the greats ever.
Yeah, I thought it was unbelievable. And we didn't even mention that one of the big points that Deborah first makes in her story.
What does she say?
Is that Italian restaurants succeed in Boston,
Yeah.
where non-Italian restaurants often don't. She mentions that Garrett Harker, before he
Who
had
owns
the
Standard
Standard
Italian,
put in All That Fish and Oyster, a seafood
know
spot, and it opened in September 23 and only lasted a few months. Then he put in Standard Italian, and the place is hopping because people love that Italian. And they talk about another place that is South End Bistro Bar, closed in 2021, and then they opened Gary's Pizza, and that's soaring. So
That's Jamie, what's his name, who has all those beautiful, fabulous high-end restaurants, who's one of Christopher Meyer's best friends.
Yeah.
Those are really great there. No, not Bisnet, the other one.
And
Massimino.
Lydia Shire, who's a great chef, she's been cooking for
Yeah.
years and years and years in Boston. She says Italian food is comfort food because who doesn't love a dish of spaghetti? And I think that's true. There's something about the pasta and the carbohydrates. All the marathon runners will be eating pasta and carbohydrates the night before the big race, Jim. Remember that? When you're supposed to carbo load before the
I
big
do
race?
remember that very well.
And they also talk about how after the Civil War, Italian food really took off around here
Did?
because that's when they had a huge a migration of
I didn't know that.
Italians.
That was
coming
in
to
the story
country.
this morning?
Yeah, you didn't read
missed
the
that.
story, Jim.
You know what I also ate?
I read the story.
Before I skimmed it.
Okay.
You know what I read?
Okay.
Do you ever, before a big marathon, you allegedly ran a few marathons?
Yes.
Would you have fill up on a good raw vegan meal
No,
before
I would
you
not.
ran?
No, I would
26
not.
miles.
But I remember when it was over, you know what I would do?
No.
Go out for a drink and a cigarette. I remember doing that.
That's pretty good. Miriam in New Hampshire. Hi there.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, we can't hear you. That's why we said hi. Go ahead. Hi.
Do I turn? Let me turn down
do
the
whatever
volume.
you want to
Can you
do.
hear me now?
We can hear you now
Go ahead,
and
Miriam.
then. We
Go
heard
ahead.
you both times. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, real quick, I'm a New Yorican. I live in New Hampshire.
Excellent. And
comfort food for me is Puerto Rican food.
What's your favorite?
What my mother used to cook.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, arroz con gandules. Arroz con pollo.
What is it?
What's the first one? Rice with what? What was the first one?
Pigeon peas.
Ooh.
Pigeon what?
Peas. I've had that. That's
Oh,
actually
pigeon
quite good.
peas.
That's
Oh,
good,
okay.
yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. That sounds
and the
good.
other one is rice with chicken.
Yeah.
There's also pernil, which is a roast pork.
Ooh. Can you get that in New Hampshire? Can you get that in New Hampshire?
Well, I've tried cooking it, but you can't find the right part of the meat you need.
You know, can I say something I hope won't offend you, but I want to try to be honest here? I have found the food in New Hampshire to be overwhelmingly horrible. Is that your experience or not?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Thank you for your affirmation.
Okay.
We appreciate that. Miriam, you're an honest woman. Thank you.
Here's a German American who likes a nice beef dish like goulash with gravy and
love
potato
goulash.
dumplings.
You know what nationality we haven't mentioned?
Is there a good Jewish deli in Boston?
Oh, yeah. Mama's is fabulous. Lair House, we talked about the other day.
That's
Two
right.
of them were standing right here. What's the one nationality we haven't mentioned, Marjorie?
The Irish.
Irish.
I tell you, corned beef and cabbage. I have a fondness for that.
You've never made corned beef and cabbage your whole life.
I think I tried it once, but as a kid, once again, big huge pot.
I know how to make
corned
it.
beef, cabbage, boiled potatoes,
Carrots.
turnips,
Carrots, yeah.
It was great. It was great, and you just.
You've made it once in your whole life, which means you probably never made it, right?
I made it once when I was in college. I told you I used to have to cook at my little the
co-op.
co-op.
Ashram place?
It wasn't an ashram. It was a co-op that I lived at. You had to cook. And once I made New England clam chowder, and I poisoned everybody.
You did?
It was terrible.
Wait, is that
I
true?
should've
That was a
laughed.
true story, right?
It was a true story. Yeah, everybody got sick.
Did
I
they
did something,
like?
I did something wrong with the clams.
Their preferred food at the ashram was Irish. Is that what it was? Corned beef and cabbage?
It wasn't the ashram.
What was it?
It was a house that I lived in. The ashram was a different situation.
Why'd you work in the ashram again?
I didn't work in the ashram.
Why were you
Jim.
hanging out in the ashram?
I went for a weekend for my class. This is so
What?
California.
Well, please
Remember,
tell
my
us.
father saw this in my report card. He was appalled. I took a class called Altered States of Consciousness.
Is that really true?
And he said, "What is this?" And yes, I did take it. So that's why I was at the ashram.
And you went to an
for the
ashram?
Yep, for the weekend.
What'd you do at the
But it
ashram?
ruined everything when I found out that the chief yogi was
Yeah.
from Worcester. That kind of took the bloom off the rose.
Where's
you know what
the
I mean?
place where you?
Redwood
was it the
City. I
ashram?
went to the ashram
No,
in
where
Redwood
you made
City.
the bread and you ate it before it had risen.
That was in
and your stomach
That
almost
was the place I
exploded.
lived in my senior year.
That was not the
Theta Chi.
ashram.
That's where we cooked for ourselves, and we
okay.
made everything.
I think
The
we resolved that.
lacto-vegetarian meal, the ovo-vegetarian meal, the straight vegetarian. You know, it was like California. That's what you did. Beatrice in Sudbury. Thank you for calling.
And before you got ahead, an anonymous texter said, caller Katie a minute ago sounded like I feel after eating raw vegan food. That's not nice. She sounded great. And by the way, if you're into raw vegan food, we love you for it. I mean, it's
Beef
beautiful.
stroganoff.
That's
Lots of
raw
people
vegan.
love that.
I love beef stroganoff. You ever made that?
Yeah, no, I
No,
haven't,
you
but
haven't.
I've eaten it.
Okay, good. Beatrice, I'm sorry. Take it away. Go. Hi.
Yes, hi.
Yeah, hello.
So I don't know if this point has been mentioned
Make it anyway.
by previous callers,
Yeah.
but comfort food is really cultural food. It's what you grew up with.
Exactly.
That is great.
Yeah, so, yeah, and it takes you back to your childhood and conjures up very good feelings about family. So comfort food takes us back. One of the things that takes me back to my childhood is Transylvanian stuffed cabbage.
Ooh.
Wow.
Which is absolutely wonderful. And it's really Hungarian. So I was born in Hungary. My parents are Hungarian. And one of the foods that I make regularly that my whole family loves is chicken paprikash.
Oh, I've had that.
Can't beat it.
That sounds
Can't
great.
beat it. You got to get good Hungarian paprika. Can't beat it.
Beatrice, thank you for the call. The only problem with a comfort food to you is what you grew up on. You know what I grew up on? A can of Dinty Moore beef stew and a can, this is true, of broadcast corned beef hash, which actually are comfort foods, I should say.
They are kind of comfort
You know what we
foods.
failed to do?
You like hash.
We have to play this sound. What's your
Oh, we
favorite?
forgot the
no,
sound.
we've been on the air 26 years. What's your favorite call ever? Liliana, the first
Liliana,
time.
we forgot.
Here's Liliana from Fall River, who I think is visiting the library soon.
That's what she says.
She said she had a lot to say. There was a case where a woman was suing Italy for allegedly slipping on a piece of prosciutto down the street. Here's an itty little bit of Liliana's first call.
Oh, please. First of all, prosciutto is a cured meat, and it does not have the greasy shine.
That's a very good point, actually.
That mortadella has.
Exactly.
Or Coca-Cola. I cannot stand such stupid women that have no idea what Italian food is and Italian customs and all that.
Okay, well, that was great. We have another sound.
We
really
do. We
to
have a
play.
lot of good sound
Well,
that
we
we
only have
forgot.
30 seconds left because Jared's
Okay,
showing
well,
up.
how about the Prince Spaghetti ad?
Exactly. For people of a certain age, play that, Marjorie.
This is the iconic late 60s ad for Prince Pasta featuring 12-year-old Anthony Martignetti rushing home for a family meal.
Anthony Martignetti lives in Boston, on Prince Street, in the Italian North End. The home for more than 50 years of the Prince Spaghetti Company. Most days, Anthony takes his time going home. But not today.
This is great.
Today is Wednesday. And as every family in the North End of Boston will tell you, Wednesday is Prince Spaghetti Day.
Hey, Jamie, didn't you do a piece for BUR when you were there on Anthony? That was a great piece. That's when we met you the first time. Where's Jared? I don't see his face. Is he there?
Is he got anything to do with Martignetti Liquor Store?
We don't know. Okay,
Martinetti's
Jared.
a big liquor store.
We can't see Jared's face, but
But
can we hear his
talk to him.
voice?
A gooey, ooey, dripping
Hi.
Reuben.
Oh, there you are. You look
hear
very
me?
nice today. Why are you dressed up?
Because I had a lovely morning. I was at the Old North Church. I was co-chairing this event honoring Ken Burns with the Third Lantern Award. So it was great to be in that space on a beautiful morning like this, being mindful of everything that was happening 250 years ago in that neighborhood. It was really special.
And they're doing a big thing tonight with the Boston Symphony.
They are.
Sponsored
Yes.
by GBH, I should say.
Are you going, Jared?
I'm not going.
You're not going.
Yeah, we won't tell you how we got our tickets. It's rather embarrassing, actually. But we are going.
Is this the part where I tell you I was invited, but unfortunately I had another conflict?
This is the part where I tell you we were not invited. And we didn't have a conflict, but we were at the last minute. So what's your favorite ethnic or what's your favorite nationality food thing?
I have to say it probably is Italian. I love Italian. I had Italian last night. My mom made a lot of it when I was growing up, even though we weren't Italian.
Don't you think that's it? It is a childhood comfort food.
My mother cooked nothing. She had no idea how to cook anything.
Jim, that's part
and
of
you
the
can't
problem,
cook anything
as
either.
We all know.
So what's your children's favorite meal?
Fish sticks. Fish sticks.
Exactly.
Happy meals.
Okay. What are you doing on the show there, Jared Bones?
So we're going to be, speaking of Patriots Day, we're going to be talking about the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution, between what's happening at the Concord Museum right now, all of the events unfolding across Massachusetts. Then we're off to the Peabody Essex Museum, where they have a great show of saints, sinners, lovers, and fools, all manner of art, of Flemish art. We'll talk about the Boston Public Art Triennial. This is a moment to start really talking about this major public art event that's going to be touching down in Boston starting next month. Pedro Alonso will walk us through it all. And then we go back to the American Revolution with this great piece. We pulled a piece out of the archives. A man who was 95 in 1950 recounted his great-grandmother's firsthand experiences of that day.
Oh,
That's pretty
wow. Jared, thank you very much.
We'll miss you tonight,
You
Jared.
will.
You know what I mean. See you later, Jared Bone. Thank you. Listen to his show.
Thank you for listening to another edition of Boston Public Radio. Thanks, everybody who came down to the Boston
you all.
Public
We
Library to see
appreciate
the show. We thank you very much. Keep up with us 24/7 by way of our podcast, or check out our TikTok page, Boston Public Radio. Tomorrow, we're going to be joined by podcast entrepreneur Chuck Todd, former Massachusetts Secretary of Public Safety, Andrea Cabral, GBH's Kirk Carapezza, and I forget how you pronounce the name. They have this education report. They're going to talk about the latest changes on college campuses with MIT economist John Gruber is going to join us to talk about the economy and what China is doing to us. Our crew is Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss. Additional support from Tamsin Vidal, our engineer, John Claude Parker. Our executive producer is Jane Bologna. Thanks to our BPL staff, Angela Marrero, Patrick Lally, Olivia Garcia, and Juan Jose Cadena, our host of the Newsfeed Cafe, and across the street at the Lennox Hotel.
By the way, Tammy in Bradford said, Jim, I thought you grew up on salami and liverwurst.
That's right.
Which I did,
You
which
did.
are my comfort foods, actually.
They're your comfort
Proving
foods.
that woman's point.
Squeeze it right out of the tube.
Love that.
The Culture Show with Jared Bowen is coming on right after us on 89.7 GBH. I'm Marjorie Egan.
I'm Jim Browdy.
Thanks again for tuning in today. Hope you can tune in again tomorrow. And have a great day.
Bye.
Funding for public media is just one of multiple efforts to diminish or eliminate our service to Boston. Today, we're asking you to stand with WCRB by becoming a sustaining member, by increasing your monthly gift, or by making an additional contribution to WCRB. That's the best way to keep this music on the air and free to everyone. Please give now, 888-995-9272, classical.org.
Giving takes just 2 minutes of your time. We need your name, contact information, which we do keep private, by the way. You can sign up as a sustaining member with a recurring monthly charge that comes directly from your bank account or your credit card, or make a one-time gift, whatever works for you. But please call 888-995-9272 or online at classical.org.
Okay, and here's the good news for WCRB. Thanks to you, we have met our goal for this hour. That is fantastic. Now we'll